Well,
Statblock.
here we are. Here we are. Alrighty. Welcome to Curious Creations, everybody. Hooray! All right. So, very.
Was I supposed to do the confetti?
Yeah, very excited today because we actually have a special guest. But yes, Curious Creations, where we do homebrew and have illustrations live on air. and of course my amazing co-host Chris Leverett, Leverett Art, my other half, beyond my wife. So do I have any halves left at this point? Because it's like my wife and then Chris, then I'm just a shell. But moving on, we have a incredible special guest with us today. I'm very thrilled to have you here. I've really enjoyed looking through Instagram and stuff. So, Matt, please tell us. We have Art Monkey MG with. Tell people where they can find
you. Hello. You can find me on Twitter at ArtMonkeyMG2 and everywhere else at ArtMonkeyMG. I am Matt Garbutt. I'm a cartoonist working in animation from the UK.
Hell yeah. And we have actually a very interesting. Pardon me, I'm holding two puppies right now. A very interesting episode today. It's not just the fact that I'm holding two dogs. I mean, that's cool, but that's not
puppies and chill. Here we are.
But yeah, so if you were talking, and I think this is gonna be really cool. We're gonna actually make Batman and Robin, but a D&D version, D&D-ified Batman, the Cape Crusader, the dynamic duo,
right? Or at least our interpretation of such. It could go many directions.
I'm deciding whether or not I will have like oh yeah, when they punches someone, it creates a little bang like in the air, you know. Boom, zap.
How campy do we want to go with it?
Yeah. But yeah, let's jump into it, shall we? We have some cool ideas, but I want to actually send it over to the two of you. I know, Chris, I believe you actually have started some stuff, or at least we're planning some stuff. And I know, Matt, you actually also have, want to send like, sketch some things, or at least gotten some ideas down.
I've not drawn anything yet, but I know the direction I'm going to go, or try to go in.
Good. This is
I've tried to come into this as fresh as possible, but you know, I've
better than when we totally fly by the seat of our pants. So.
Right, but I was kind of thinking, trying to conceptualize, like, okay, I think we've decided that I'm going to go the Robin route, and Matt's going to take the honors of the Dark Knight.
Thank you.
So I was thinking up, maybe some variation on Monk potentially for Robin. Seems like it could make sense. I think there's a lot of room for both of them for some multi-classing, or some homebrew, which I think would certainly be your specialty there to make sense of whatever we do. So that's nice.
But this is something actually Chris and I were talking about before we started the stream, of like making them as NPCs or just making like character sheets. I've been kind of quietly thinking about it. I was loudly thinking about it with Chris, but now I'm quietly thinking about it. And I think like when we think about someone like Batman and Robin, there is obviously some heavy expectation. They're such iconic characters, and they've been around for so long and done so many things. But like the two of them, just there's so many routes you can go, because every writer that like picks them up takes them in like different directions. If I was to make like Dark Knight Returns, Batman versus like the more is like 70s Batman, or even like the original like Bob Kane, Bill Finger Batman, gonna have totally different characters.
Right. Yeah.
To me, Bruce Timm's Batman is the most iconic.
Oh, Bruce Timm. I will say I view Batman in the most preferential light when I think of Batman the Animated Series, because he's not just an awesome like ass-kicking superhero, but he tries to help pretty much all of the villains, and he's like, I don't want you to do this. I'm not just gonna beat the shit out of you. I want to solve your problems so that you stop doing this nonsense.
Like, yeah, for me, it is the definite. It's the best version of Batman. The Art Deco setting as well is amazing, and then it leads on to Batman of the Future, which I think is called Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
On your
Oh
side
my
of the
gosh.
pond.
Yeah.
Because apparently they wouldn't think
what's
UK could handle Batman Beyond, and had to call it in the future.
Batman in the Future? For real? That's what it's called? Wow.
Batman of the Future, I think it was called over here.
Oh, and I
Yeah.
saw recently that Ninja Turtles were Teenage Mutant
Hero
Hero
Turtle.
Turtles for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so
because
wild.
they didn't want people kicking the crap out of each other, which
They're going to become
happened
ninjas.
anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Mikey can't use nunchucks, but everybody else can have swords and, other things.
Okay, but there
Wow.
is something to that. Like, I love seeing like the little cultural differences, especially for 13 months. Wow, nice. That's right. My wife wants to see the babies. These are our new adopted puppies. We just got them this week. We have Mishra and Arcana. They're very sweet. But especially like for like Bruce Timm, Batman, like the animated series, I think they said he's the world's greatest detective, as he should be. He's devastating in a fight, but he also is he uses his smarts just as much as his fists, which I think that most Batman stories and movies otherwise do, like, his superpower is beating up poor people, which is not what Batman should be.
Yeah, he has technology and he punches.
Yeah. It's like, no, he's great because he's the world's greatest detective. He tries so hard to help so many of the villains, like, and that show is single-handedly responsible for like this like Batman renaissance that happened in the 90s. I mean, and early on, it's like, because you had where he had kind of traipsed off, and then in like the 80s, he had like Dark Knight Returns and some of like darker Batman stories. They're great. Letting, like I said, like Frank Miller and Alan Moore and some of these other people like take Batman stories and really go wild with it. But then it's like it kind of got a little too gritty, so
it became the standard, and I see that with movies too, where it's just like, oh, it's not dark enough. I'm like, well, that was like, yeah, a particular Batman that now people think that is the only, correct manifestation.
Right. I was actually very pleasantly surprised with Robert Pattinson.
I really enjoyed that.
Batman. Well, he solves
Filmed
crimes.
in Over the Water from me as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was super impressed with Penguin. I thought Colin Farrell did an incredible job as Penguin. But
well, it's getting a spin-off, isn't it?
Yeah. But the idea of doing Riddler as like a Zodiac type was a very interesting touch for me.
Yeah.
I like that he tries to understand him and tries to be like, well, what's his deal, and solve his crimes and solve his riddles, as opposed to just like, I'm gonna beat him up, like. But then it's like, not to spoil it, it was like when he does confront him, he's like realizes how gone he is and has to like deal with him in that way, and that's Ina says Robert Pattinson is good Batman, terrible Bruce, which I agree. I think that Bruce Wayne should be charming and charismatic. I liked, again, animated series like Bruce Wayne was this billionaire playboy, but he is, as many people have pointed out over the years, like, Batman is who he is now, and like Bruce Wayne is like the fake identity.
I'd say with Batson, I got the feeling that they was kind of trying to do like a year one story in a way as well, but without
too
focusing too much on the origin. Kind of like what they did with the new the newest version of Spider-Man we got, when they finally brought him in, it's like, we don't need to start at the beginning with him because everybody knows the origin for it now.
Yeah,
We'll have it felt like Batman's been doing it for like maybe half a year, and he's finally like starting to make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
So like maybe we'll see more of a Bruce
right
in the next one.
I'm hoping. I will say, if I have to see that stupid like pearl necklace hitting the alley like streets one more time, I'm gonna flip out. Like, we all know Batman's deal. Don't need to explain it every time you do a new Batman.
Yeah, but there's always a new audience.
Yeah, it's like
but yeah, they reboot things way too often now.
Yeah.
I think the real problem with Batman films at the moment is I've heard a rumor that Clayface is going to be in the new one.
Yes.
And it's like that's awesome, but again, these Batman films, they're leaning towards realism too much to then put in the comic book aspects of it. Like the Dark Knight trilogy, that was very grounded in reality to begin with, and then it just started getting a bit too far-fetched for the setting and the world they kind of built up with it for me.
Yeah.
If you get me.
Yeah,
So
they kind of box themselves in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're sort of limited in what you can do when, you've kind of closed out anything that's a little bit out of this world.
I'd be interested to see if for Clayface they go more with his original comic book appearance, where he was literally just a master of disguise who would like just constantly like do this Lon Chaney-esque makeup to like change his face, and like could mimic people perfectly, and he like implicates people in crimes and does this. And they kind of do that for the animated series, where it's like, oh, he was like this master actor, and then like but then he gets like turned into a horrible clay monster. And I don't think that they'll go that far, but I think that they'll probably go in the direction of him like, you can't trust anyone because any of them could be Clayface, which is an interesting route to take it. But I do wish they would either commit to like the full fantasy Batman or the just grounded reality Batman, because yeah, they keep, especially when they like start doing a trilogy or something, they start stretching it more and more and more, and you're like, okay, come on.
Well, and to the point of Robin, it's like I think especially Hollywood has been afraid to approach that, just because like, oh, does that take it too much in this like sort of unbelievable territory of like, would you really have this child or young adult is getting endangered, and then there's like all the weird homophobia nonsense that goes along with that. It's like, okay. But in the comics it's like you don't really question it, it's just like, well, that's just how it is.
Yeah. Which,
so when you make it too gritty and realistic,
I will probably do a female Robin.
Yeah, I will say, so when we are saying, Chris, do you have a particular Robin that you're trying to, or just like a more general vibe? Because there's what, like 6 different Robins now?
For real, yeah. And I've saved about all of them in the references that I'm scrolling through. It's kind of more the vibe. I definitely want to channel some of that original spirit of like, the little kind of Peter Pan boots and kind of the bright colors. So I guess kind of that what Dick Grayson was the first one, right?
Yeah, it's Dick Grayson, and then Jason Todd, and then Tim Drake. There's Harry Kelly,
Damian, right?
Damian Wayne. I want to say there's another one.
So I guess in general, kind of just the ones that have been like the most have that youthful energy. So kind of at least your initial Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, and then Damian Wayne. Damian
Wayne, I think, is funny because when it's like when he's fully Robin, that's after the Death of Batman story. So it's like, they have where Bruce Wayne is dead, and it's like Dick Grayson has gone from being Nightwing to becoming Batman. So it's like you have Damian Wayne, who's like dark and brooding and serious as Robin, and then like Batman is like actually able to like crack a joke and like be a bit more lighthearted, and
that's funny.
It's like it's a kind of a flip personality wise. Which one died? Oh, Jason Todd is the one that was beaten to death by Joker. But then, of course, he got better, and he came back as Red Hood.
So you're going for more of a campy kind of Robin?
I think so, and I think it to kind of complement, your fun style that I love.
I can go down more of an Adam West kind of route for one, because if we're streaming for a while, I can do a few versions.
Well, especially if we're doing a more fantasy vibe, it kind of gives that like Don Quixote and Pancho like vibe of like you have like the more serious like stoic one and the one who's like the more lighthearted. Or what was it? I actually rewatched the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing movie recently.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love that, and it's ridiculous, but I love it.
Right, and I forget that he has his like sidekick, the friar, the like monk in training.
All the weapons.
Right.
Yeah. God, what a ridiculous movie. It's very fun, but it's very silly. I guess I should probably start working on doing this. I am going to make a stat block for Batman. But what I want to quickly do, because I kind of talked about this a little earlier in the stream, I was saying, like, if we were going to make him as a character to play, there's actually some, like, official stuff that I would use to make Batman. Like, obviously, variant human, probably give him, like, the tough feat or something like that, as, like, his starter feat. But, I would almost definitely go, if not full fighter, like mostly fighter, probably battle master to give him all the different maneuvers, unarmed fighting style, so he's like doing extra damage with his punches and stuff.
I would say you'd have to be, you have to have some rogue in him.
Yeah, the thing I like about
I feel like either of them could dip into rogue for sure. Yeah,
either rogue or I even considered artificer because of all his
that one
gadgets.
came up too. Yeah, right.
But even still, I would do like a 3-level dip in either rogue or artificer. Keep it really simple.
Batman's definitely that mid-maxer. That's got just all the little best attributes of a bunch of classes.
The only other thing I considered is doing a paladin.
Okay, I can see that.
And really, like, again, allowing smites on unarmed attacks, doing unarmed fighting style, and just like cranking all of his attack, and then flavoring his gadgets as his spells.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, but it's like you can go in and just do some really hits and just like smite really nasty on them. Probably Oath of Vengeance. If I was gonna do
Vengeance.
He's the more like fear-based one that you can like frighten enemies and do crazy stuff. So like Oath of Vengeance Paladin, I can definitely see. But I would probably still give him like the feats and backgrounds and stuff to like give him like the extra, like Battle Master-esque maneuvers and stuff, because I think Batman's ability to adapt to any situation is like paramount to his character. I also considered, he'd be loaded up with a few magic items. Easiest is the Cloak of the Bat, the Mantle of the Bat, where it's like it's the cloak that if you're in the dark, you can give yourself a flying speed. Like, okay, yeah, you just glide.
Oh my god.
But a couple other like simple gadgets and stuff. Like there's plenty of even just like uncommon items that I feel like he just have loaded in his belt. Some attunement, some not. But instead of just making like, okay, it's like Batman and then it's like Robin, especially if we're going either Dick Grayson or like Tim Drake, or even Damian Wayne, I would go mostly Monk.
I think so. Yeah, I could see Monk with a bit of Rogue in there. Yeah, but
Rogue to really crank up the extra damage and to
stealth.
Yeah, the disengaging and hiding is a bonus action. But just 50 hits, especially with the batons once he's Nightwing, or even just punching and doing this, that's pure
yeah. I definitely
Monk.
wanted to include the staff is what I'm trying to work in right now. Having a bow staff.
I see them both as Monk, Rogue, because especially after playing the Arkham Asylum games, he's not someone who just jumps into a fight. He can kick your ass, but he'll take you down from the shadows. He's a ninja, really, isn't he?
Yeah. I saw this thing that made me laugh. Where it was Batman has the best movie of all superheroes because he has Dark Knight, and it's he has the best TV show of all superheroes because he has Batman the Animated Series. He has the best video game of all superheroes because he has the Arkham trilogy. I even heard someone say oh, he has the best song on a soundtrack from any superhero movie because he has "Kiss from a Rose."
Oh. Oh my gosh.
I was yeah, but he also is short of Superman, the longest running superhero of all time.
Well, and I think the thing of it, and I think what we're doing now is it can be. He's such a universal character that can be taken in so many directions.
I love
and some of my favorite graphic novels are just they're vastly different stories, and he's a different character in a lot of those stories. Yeah, some of them are just this crazy maniac, and other ones, yeah, where he's this kind of totally different vibe, but it's all Batman,
Yeah, I was telling Chris one time I love reading the dark, grittier Batman where he's almost like Christian Bale's swear to me, and the really intense as Long Halloween Batman, Dark Knight Returns Batman, some of these classic darker, grittier stories. But then there's also the 70s Batman where he's oh, the Joker made up a fake cruise and sent the mayor on it. Now he's become the mayor of Gotham and is enacting all these silly laws and stuff, just weird random. So it's oh no, a giant Jack in the Box that I have to turn the crank to, and then Joker punches me in the face, just silly stuff. Where you're that there's something very appealing about how lighthearted you can go with Batman. But yeah, I do think.
Right. I think there's some things that we just, and I know nerds especially can take things a little too seriously, especially once it's this is my thing.
Yeah, I know. I know that animated series I think hits the best medium of all of that. It's definitely got that oh, it can be fun and lighthearted and have jokes, moments that really make you laugh, moments that make you cry, solves crimes, he helps the villains as much as he can until he eventually has to deal with them.
It can be watched by kids or adults, and they kind of works either way.
Some of the dark stories as well, that one with the little girl actress who doesn't age.
And he just sits with her and lets her die, and it's all right, shit. Didn't expect that. Or we even said Clayface, and the Clayface is he shows all the different images of him, and he can't maintain, so he's twisting between all of his different former roles as an actor. And you're Jesus, this is horrifying to see him unable to control his own powers and stuff.
I think that is really the true testament of what makes Batman great is the villains.
Oh yeah, he has the best rogues gallery of any hero out there, just hands down.
Yeah, I'd say Spider-Man's a close second.
Oh yeah. And I like too that Batman he has like really dark, serious villains. You know, and then he has shit like Calendar Man and
That's a good...
like the doofiest, you know. But then you'll see something like Long Halloween where they take Calendar Man and make him this like Hannibal Lecter type, and you're like, damn, like, all right.
Yeah, like that was the inspiration for the Arkham version as well, and like,
yeah,
it was good. You can see him being a proper killer. It'd be interesting to see someone do a gritty version of Quilt Man.
Oh yeah, could be good. Could be good.
Kite Man.
I will say I love in the Arkham series Penguin's design that he has the bottle shoved into his face.
Yes.
What it's like that is such a brilliant design move that I'm like furious that no one thought of it before then. Like I'm to a point of like, oh, how did we not already have this? Like, so genius. But let me get started. Batman. So if I'm making him as he's obviously would be a medium humanoid. And then now armor class wise, for me, I'm thinking that he has essentially the equivalent of like Elven Chain or like Mithril plate armor, where it's like it's plate that does not affect his stealth in any way. It's like fully flexible, like completely silent, you know. Because he's can take some nasty hits. I've seen obviously I love the designs where he just has like a shirt almost like it's like just like what is that, like neoprene or like just like a thin like, you know, denim or something like. And then there's others where it's like the plates of like armor. I'm you know, it's like,
yeah, I do love, what is it, Paul Pope, the way he does his, where he's just got like kind of like it's almost like I think he based it off of like a like an old school boxing outfit with like the boots and then the just kind of like sweat suit.
The kid just to the room with his trousers on his head.
And then he puts in like fangs. Like, oh, that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah. I really appreciated in the Robert Pattinson one that his bat symbol, that's the batarang that he like shink and like takes it out to like. I was like, that is nice because that's a really old school bat. Like that's like a Bob Kane, Bill Finger style, like, you know, where it's like the actual medallion in the center was like bulletproof, or he could like throw it at people. And I was like,
yeah,
man.
having the functional pieces is neat. Or you can see how, yeah, he has like sort of very like junkyard chic, which kind of goes to the point of being sort of year one, where he's just like sort of slapping stuff together, like let's soup up this hot rod, you know. It's like, oh, I like that vibe.
Might be controversial,
not all like
but that is my
$1
second best Batmobile.
Oh yeah,
because it's basically just a Batman Mustang in looks, and it's amazing.
It's such a great chase scene, especially like just you're like, this is a really intense, like this feels really realistic, and like the way it was shot was really well done. But you can just see Penguin's fear when it's like it just barrels through of just like, oh god, like
the sound design in that movie too, with like I can feel that engine rumbling, you know, and then like his magical, if you can make this an item with this stat block, his magical boots of loudness that he can turn on and off.
Okay, I will say
like, okay, I'm gonna go from quiet mode to kadoom, kadoom.
That boots activate intimidation move.
Okay,
exactly.
I will say that is actually already an existing magic item. I was stunned to find out because Jarl Axel in the Drizzt Do'Urden books, in the Forgotten Realms books, has these magical like, you know, like high heel boots that he like walks around, not high heel, but like, you know, they're said to be like a tall heel boot, and he walks around and he's like clack clack clack, and it just like really, you know, guess who's back in the house? It's like super loud. And so it becomes like his signature. Everyone's like, oh, we can hear Jarlaxle coming a mile away. But then he can make them silent at will. So then he can sneak up on people and like, oh, how did Jarlaxle get here without us knowing? So
Yep, there you go. Yeah.
I found out that's actual boots, and as soon as I found that out, I was like, I want those so badly.
Right? That with the cape of billowing, and you're off to the races.
Gainer, happy 420. Hope everyone did one weed today. Thank you, Gainer. Appreciate you. I hope everyone, where it's legal, did one weed today. And if it's not, then don't, you sinner. Okay, so plate armor, I'm thinking that minimum he has +2 plate armor. I would argue Batman's armor would be equivalent to +3. Because, like, it's, you know, it's said to be, like, some of the finest. Like, it can withstand all sorts of, you know. The only reason I think I might stick with +2 is because I would argue +3 would be, like, when he has to, when he's like, I'm gonna fight Superman, and does, like, the super heavy armor.
Well, I guess that's a question too. Are we thinking this is him, you know, at full form, or are we doing like kind of year one, you know, kind of adventurer here?
That's. I'm thinking this is him. Like, if you just pick up an average Batman comic, this is him just like average day to day. You know.
Okay.
I don't want to go year one, just for the sake of like. I feel like I'd have to make 2 Batman stat blocks of like year 1 and then like super expensive.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I would say, like I said, the mithril and high class levers for the movability.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I like that like Elvish chain or mithril style of like it's heavy armor that does not restrict his movement and does not impose any penalties to his stealth. So.
Which I'm liking the armor you're incorporating right now. Definitely getting some Dark Knight, indeed.
Yeah, I want to give that like knight vibe, but without going full armor knight.
Clank, clank, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then. Okay, make sure. So right here. Now, I obviously want Batman to be like a pretty decent CR. Like, to me, we get a Batmite as well. And your infinitely powerful sprite who just fucking loves Batman. That would be funny. We'll see how far we get for the stream. I've considered doing like some of the weirder ones. It's like since we're doing Batman, to me it's like we need to have future episodes where we do like. I mean, Superman would just be a CR30, like it's just pointless. But other superheroes, I was like wondering about villains, and I was like, you know who I'd love to see is like, was it Zizzlepix or whatever, where he's essentially just like a god, and if you the only way to defeat him is to say his name backward. Follow-up stream, which is me talking about my favorite Batman villains. That could be a long stream because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of great dumb Batman villains. I also was heartbroken to find out they canceled the Batgirl movie that was like essentially done. They just needed to do post-production, so like special effects and stuff.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser as Firefly, and then you had your Michael Keaton in there.
Yeah, like
what
Michael
the heck?
Keaton returning as Batman, Brendan Fraser as Firefly. Like, by all accounts, like
that Michael Keaton one's in that Flash film.
Right, which I think is like what people are most excited about with that movie.
Which, like, I'm not 100% sure what Ezra Miller did, but I got the feeling that it was very bad, yet they're still giving him his movie.
So
yeah, I think there's some weird.
The broadest strokes I know is he assaulted like 6 or 7 different people. He like held someone hostage or like kidnapped like a minor or something. Like he committed several like felony crimes, like serious crimes, and it was just like, no, it's fine. It's he, you know, or they. Excuse me. I don't want to. I'm not trying to just be angry and misgender Ezra Miller, but it's like Ezra Miller was really fucking around and like kidnapped someone and like assaulted several other people, and they still are getting a movie. And I'm like, yeah, how much did you spend on this movie that you're not willing to take the loss on it?
I think they're counting on that Michael Keaton aspect of it. Because, but to be fair, like I'm not a massive DC fan. I like Batman. That's pretty much it. The Shazam film was good, but like that Justice League film, in my opinion, was awful.
Yeah, they've been kind of trying to find their way for a while.
Yeah, so like I was not interested whatsoever about this Flash film, and then when they said, "Oh, Michael Keaton's coming back," it's like, "Oh, I'll watch it when it comes on VOD."
Right? Yeah,
for free. But
so I'm gonna put Batman pretty high CR. I'm thinking like a CR 18-ish. So I'm probably gonna put him. Let's see, maybe 25 D8 for hit dice. I have to do math. This is the one part that I probably dread the most of doing a stat block. I can do math, I think.
We'll get real quiet, so that's all that we're hearing.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
I want to hear these calculations. We gotta make sure this
okay.
checks out.
So base 112, and then we'll figure out their stats. Oh, I lost him. Yeah, we lost Chris. I can still see him illustrating. Don't have his audio.
So do normally talk and then reveal the art?
We go back and forth, so we're showing off live back and forth as we go.
I've only got the ninja thing up. Maybe I should get the Twitch thing up so I can see what he's drawing.
But yes, so I think like a big thing for me is like there's so many different ways you can do Batman, and I especially love him in like a fantasy universe, because when you have wizards and dragons and like other fantasy things, it's like the idea of a normal human vigilante is like, oh, well, who cares? And I will say it's like, okay, you think of him in like the DC universe where there's like Superman and Red Tornado and Martian Manhunter and Wonder Woman and, you know, Green Lantern, all like the members of the Justice League. And it's like the way that he stands out is his ability to plan and sort things out. And Chris's computer's updating. He'll be back with us in just but like he has a contingency for every possible thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think in a fantasy setting, like D&D, he would be dipping in everything. Like you would, since you can just learn magic, you'd probably learn magic.
That does make stat-wise he's a little difficult to track. I would put a bigger emphasis on his dexterity actually than his strength. I know he's strong, so he'll have decent, but like his ability to have people fight against themselves and redirect hits and like move and fighting style, I think, is so important as opposed to just brute strength. Like, he never, in my mind, he almost never like just tries to brute strength his way through a problem.
Yeah.
Like, really only for his weakest villains does he bother. Hey. Hello? Can you hear us, Chris? Looking down at something. I think it's pretty cool that every actor either gets to play Batman or Joker now. For when Channing Tatum's Batman thinks of Tim Curry. Hey, Tim Curry is 77 today, I think. I think today is his birthday. I would not mind seeing him as Joker. Though I do think there was someone I actually thought Curry would be perfect for. It drives me crazy now until I can think of it.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
All right.
How's it going, buddy?
All right. Little surprise silencing.
It will not be silenced.
I got some things to say about Batman. Trying to embrace this approach of like minimal actual sketching and just going straight into blocking stuff in and kind of playing around with shapes from the get-go.
Ra's al Ghul is who I was going to say. Tim Curry I actually think would be great as Ra's al Ghul. That's one I would be really down to see. Otherwise, Hugo Strange I think would be cool. There's several villains that I want them to do in like the movies that they just have not tackled yet because they insist on just doing Joker and everything.
Yeah, when they teased the Joker in that newest movie, I'm just like, okay. I just
that was the most disappointing part of the entire thing for me. And knowing that he'll be a big part of the next one, I was like, okay.
Like him, like consulting him, like in the prison, like okay, if we're limited to that, but we still like give some other spotlight to other villains, it's one thing. But yeah, if he's gonna be like the main player, it's like it's kind of going back to things that we've seen over and over and over.
Yeah, it's like it becomes the Spider-Man problem of like you have such a huge giant rogues gallery and you stick to like one villain. Really frustrating.
I will say Homecoming is probably my favourite Spider-Man film. Because what they did with Vulture was fucking genius.
Yeah.
Because like when I first heard of it, it's like, oh, they're going to put some guy who's stealing people's youth into this. It's going to be a bit silly. And then the fact they had him being like more of an actual Vulture was genius. It works so well in the MCU.
I like too that they're like, oh yeah, it's like you have this great contract. It's like finally your life is looking up, and then like damage control. It's like essentially the government comes in and be like, no, we've just decided that we're going to be in charge of this, and you're all out of a job. Fuck you. It's like I would lose my mind. So I was like, I get it, you know. Like, oh, the real villain is capitalism. But of course they have to make him have the giant suit and like kill people and whatnot because they don't want to accidentally teach kids socialism. But it was still a really fun movie. I will say out of the Tom Holland ones, I think the greatest moment out of all of them for me is in the newest, like the last one. No Way Home is the last one. it's when he has his like spider sense and he's like trying to figure out what's going wrong where, and he's like, I'm surrounded by villains who could kill me at any moment, and he's like panic. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? And then it like goes to Green Goblin, and you see Willem Dafoe's face just like drop, and you're like, oh fuck! Like that was genius. Like, and it's Willem Dafoe sold that moment so well. But them doing the thing of like, oh yeah, he has like the nice, like his false teeth, like the nice good teeth when he's Norman Osborn, and then his like normal fucked up Willem Dafoe teeth when he's Green Goblin. Like little touches like that were just really nice to see. But again, it's like I was hesitant to even see the movie because I was like, how many times can I do Green Goblin? There's only so much Green Goblin I can take in my life. But they did a really good job. It was nice. I was like, cool. Now we're done with him? Okay, this was like...
So. I see, was you not a fan of the Green Goblin cancer? The cancer that turns you into a literal scaly goblin?
I was not a fan of that. I'm going to go right ahead and say it. Thought that was kind of silly.
Yeah, that was quite stupid.
But yeah, and so like the Batgirl movie, then they're like, oh, Brendan Fraser is Firefly. It's like, great, Brendan Fraser, great. And then Firefly, a villain that we haven't seen in a movie like this before, great. And then they're like, canceled. Damn it.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of going through and retconning a bunch of things with DC right now.
Yeah, they're redoing the whole universe. So okay, strength-wise, I'm gonna give Batman probably still a good strength. I'll give him like an 18, you know, but Dex, I'm gonna go straight ahead, and he's gonna be like, this is where he's like superhuman for me, in the sense of like, I think magic item and like charm wise, and like there's ways to justify it in terms of like a normal person could get these boosts to put them above what a normal human is even capable of at their best. So I'm gonna put him at like a 24 Dex, because that to me is like Batman is probably the best hand-to-hand fighter in the DC universe. And then like his intelligence, I think, is going to be beyond 20. Everything else is just like good but not outrageous. But he is very like nimble and agile, and he's very intelligent, and then like the rest is like he's good. He's better than average, but it's like he makes up for what he lacks in those areas with his like dexterity and his intelligence. His ability to plan and always put himself in the best possible like, you know, situation for what he has to deal with. Like, how can I turn this to my advantage?
Start again as well. And try and get a bit more cartoony, over proportioned shape.
Yeah, I think if you go for the brick wall, that could contrast really nicely. It's just that big rectangle man.
Oh, here we go. Gainer says, this might be a rough take, but Far From Home's take on Mysterio as a villain, using MCU tropes, fake multiverses to hide as a hero, especially the fact that they made him look like a hero in the promo material, to the point that people were mad about them fucking up the character. It's really so good because Mysterio is a personal... Okay, I am obsessed with Quentin Beck Mysterio. I think he is absolutely fantastic. And so when they were advertising, I was like, oh, they're making him a good guy in this. I was like, that's weird. I was like, but by the end of the movie, he'll be like, now I hate you, Spider-Man. Like, there's no way that they'll just make him a good guy. So I was like, I was nervous about the movie going in, but I mean, first off, Jake Gyllenhaal, one of the finest character actors out there, in my opinion. But man, he really sold it. Of like, I just love his motivation of like, Tony Stark made me look stupid, and so I have to destroy everything. And that I really kind of get. It's nice to have a villain who's like, I'm evil because good is dumb. like of just it's just a personal slight that you just can't let go. Yeah, the turn after
Yeah,
he
like
gets the glasses.
that was a great film as well. Like, I think the only one that I didn't really enjoy retrospectively is the latest one because it felt like Spider-Verse was amazing, which it is. Let's do that. And I think I don't know about a lot of other people, but I am getting a bit burnt out on the MCU stuff as well.
I
It's
hear that a lot.
too much of it, too fast. Like, oh yeah, look at this series coming out. I was like, I don't care. I've not watched the other
Oversaturated.
one yet.
Yeah.
The funny
Like,
thing
I
is,
did enjoy the new Ant-Man, though. I will say that.
I will say I heard so many horrifically negative reviews of the last Thor and the Ant-Man of Quantumania and Love and Thunder. I really enjoyed both of them. I don't care. They were fun movies. Were they perfect? No, but they were great. Like I had fun, which is the point of seeing a movie for me. Like, I'm not expecting Citizen Kane from the fucking MCU. You know what I mean? Like, but the thing is, I do understand people getting burnt out, and there is an aspect of like, oh man, I just went to the theater to see, you know, like I there's already another one. So I heard that they're like, oh, we're toning it down, so it'll be like 4 movies and 3 shows max a year, and I'm like, that's still a lot. Like, if you did like 2 or 3 movies and like 1 or 2 shows a year, I think people would be fine. Like, give people time to enjoy the shit. But like, there's also the limit of like, well, these actors aren't getting any younger, so we kind of have to do some stuff. Which it's like these movies take a couple years to make. Like, I get it, but I also think that the lengths that they have to go to avoid people like releasing spoilers and stuff and doing that is too much. It's insane. People need to chill the fuck out. Like, 7 pieces of MCU a year is still buck wild. Yes, it is. It's like I said, it's too much, but it's it is getting to. We are getting to like a new kind of like phase where they're starting to introduce a lot of the like kid heroes. I think they're trying to like lock down some of these actors for the next 10, 15, 20 years. They're like, oh yeah, we get them when they're like in their mid 30s. They'll be like in their 50s by the time we like get to the best stories for them. So I think they're like now they're doing like Miss Marvel and like the oh my god, I was
really looking forward to that, and I found it quite disappointing.
I was mixed about it. Like, I
really liked the comics.
Yeah. I thought that she was funny. Huge parts of the rest of the show, I was like, oh. Like, I still liked it, but I was like, it wasn't, there's a lot that I think it could have improved. But I'm interested to see the new movie still, the Marvels, you know.
Yeah, I'm finding though, like in general, it's a lot of the Marvel ones. Like, I enjoy it when I see it, and then I'm okay moving on. You know, there's not a ton of them that I'm like, I want to go back and rewatch that over and over. And while DC has like struggled with the consistency of having that like ongoing universe, there have been some of those, like your Dark Knights and some of these, you know, other ones that kind of stand on their own as sort of this almost artistic interpretation that I'm like sucked into that particular world that I want to revisit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was bummed out when I heard they were doing a Joker sequel. It's like, really? That film was great. It was something different. It felt like a good standalone film. You don't have to like make everything into the franchise. Like, you've got so much DC movie franchise as it is, which you're already rebooting.
Yeah.
Just let some stuff stay as it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what Dark Knight had going for it. It's like, we can just make our own worlds. We don't have to. It doesn't have to connect to this. It doesn't have to complement this. Like This makes sense in our interpretation.
Yeah. I will say it's like I was particularly hit hard by the Joker. It's kind of silly, but it's like my my mother was a clown for the Ringling Brothers Circus. I've said this a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like also it's like yes, I'm Alakazam, but it's like I'm Brian Fleck, and so seeing a character named something Fleck was his last name, I was like, oh, we have the same last name. That's kind of weird. And then like oh yeah, and then the clown aspect is like he was a clown. I was like, ooh, this is hitting a little home for me. And then when he's when he's talking to he's like all I have are negative thoughts. I was like, ooh, like there was a few moments I was like, this is getting a little real for. I remember, yeah, when Joker came out, I saw it twice. I saw it once in the theater, and I was like, ooh. And I had friends who wanted to see it, and I was like, okay. And I went and saw it again, and I talked to my therapist about the Joker movie for like 3 hours. Like, I was like, this one cut a little too close to home for me, but it was so good. Like, and Joaquin Phoenix, like even in the beginning when he hands the card, this is, oh, I have like a brain injury. He's like, so if I'm laughing, he's like, it's not at you. It's like, oh, like just the little choices in that. Yeah. Arcana, what are you doing? Hmm? Oh, thank you. Walking penis. Okay, nailed it. But
as far as bringing Robin into a kind of a grittier vibe, I think a good example was actually in was it Kick-Ass 2 or was it the first one where they had was it Hit Girl?
Oh yeah, well she's in both of them, but like especially the first one.
But that which is like maybe it kind of is like problematic in that like that's I guess what a child soldier in this situation would look like, but it's like this acrobatic but also still youthful character, like okay. And then this gritty character that she's with.
I do like that Nicolas Cage is supposed to just be a Batman ripoff. But like showing him like actually putting like the eye makeup on before putting on the cowl and like
right,
there's some really nice choices. I mean those movies are very silly, but
right,
like killing a bad guy with like a bazooka launched from a jetpack, like come on, like there's, but spoilers for Kick-Ass by the way, but it's like it is interesting to see some of the choices they made. I also like that the movie made several changes from the comic that I actually really liked and preferred. It's one of the few where I feel like I actually like the adaptation better than the original. Like I read the comic and I was like, oh, this is a lot darker and like weirder. And I was like, the movie's a lot more fun and enjoyable.
Right, they kind of found some sort of balance between like this campiness that sort of takes a little bit of the pressure off of the brutality.
Yeah. But I'd be interested to see well, I'm interested to see the new season of The Boys once it comes out. That one has diverged so much from the comics. But again, I prefer the show to the comic. I was stunned that Jensen Ackles comes off of Supernatural, and then like he really like I've seen, and I will say not to just like talk about Supernatural, but there's several moments
you and your Supernatural. Here we go again.
There's several moments in the show where I was like, he's almost a good actor. Where I was like, I'm like, give him a second to like get into place and I'll believe what he's saying. Like, he's funny and silly and super hot, but like, I was like, oh, like, I'm like, the writing is bad and he doesn't get enough time to develop what he's doing. But I'm like, but he's almost there. But then like The Boys, I was like, Jensen Ackles a good fucking actor? What am I watching?
Ah.
Like, it's, I was like, wow, he's really selling it. Like, I believe his character, and like, he's such a unlikable piece of shit, which was also nice because like he always plays like the really a charming lead. So it was nice
Oh,
to
yeah.
see him as like really love to hate him, which is a good villain for me. You know, and I was like, damn it. And there's some heavy hitter actors in The Boys. Like Carl Urban, good God, brilliant character actor. And I forget the dude who plays Homelander, but like, he sells what a piece of shit Homelander is, so like okay. Jensen Ackles really blew me away. I know they're gonna have some other films. I will say, I get very sick and tired of the evil Superman trope. To me, what makes Superman interesting is that he's a good guy. But if they're gonna do it, at least they're doing it like in a way that I have been intrigued by. So
Yeah,
it's
because they are aiming for like a world if superpowers were real, this is what it would be like, and
yeah.
it's you can imagine that's what it would be like.
I especially like that he gets Giancarlo Esposito just dresses him down to be like, oh, you think he's like, you're this amazing superhero and all that. He's like, that doesn't matter. He's like, our money is from pharmaceuticals and like weapons and from this. He's like, you're just a way to sell products. He's like, I don't care about anything you do. And that was a really like, yeah, I guess that's what it would be. I catch a Stormfront. Oh yeah, Stormfront. The episode of, I think it's the second season, where it's like Stormfront is talking about, and you see the guy, it's like the little 5-10 minutes at the beginning of the episode, where it's like just some random guy becoming radicalized by like listening to Stormfront and like admiring Stormfront and Homelander, and then he just like commits a hate crime and kills like a gas station attendant or something, or grocery clerk or whoever it was. I was like, that is a better like little micro documentary on the dangers of radicalization that I've ever seen. Like, it was so well done to understand, like, yep, that's how it happens. That's how you take like some lonely jackass and just make them radically hateful. But again, I like Superman because Superman's a good guy. That's the fact that he could have infinite godlike power and still be like, yeah, but I gotta help people. Like, to me, that's way more interesting than being like, oh, yes, now I shall become a god and do this and everyone will love me. Superman's like, I hope people like me. He's like, I do what I can. He's like, but I'm still gonna do the right thing even if they don't like me. And I'm like, God, that's so much better. Okay, so I'm making Batman's stats here. I gave him an 18 in strength. Not 100% sold. Might drop that down to a 17. 24 in dex. Like I said, super high dex. Con, I'm thinking I'm sticking with a 20 because again, he can take a lot of punishment. Intelligence 22 because again, that's going to be his number one is dex and intelligence. Wisdom, I made his lowest. I put that at a 17. And then charisma I kept pretty high because intimidation factor, but also he tries to like talk and communicate to other heroes and to villains. I might drop that charisma down because I know that he makes the attempt, but he rarely succeeds, I think, in his attempts to like talk people down. I feel like he goes for the charisma route, but maybe doesn't have the actual charisma to back it up.
Right. I would, yeah, maybe at least give him like a proficiency in deception, as out of Batman, especially.
I'll definitely give him in intimidation. I can tell you that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I'll drop that down actually. Saving throws, obviously Dex. Let's see here. So you all can see what I'm working on. I've started doing Batman here. Now he's like I said, I did CR 18, so he's gonna have a proficiency bonus of +6. So right at the gate, he's gonna have +13 to Dex saves. I'm thinking Wisdom is probably gonna be his other big one, because he's gonna resist like mind altering effects. So +9. Then I don't know that strength or con save sense. Maybe intelligence. See past like illusions. That's still wisdom save most of the time. I'm happy with that. Skills, athletics. I'll do acrobatics. I'll do acrobatics. No, I will do athletics for him and then acrobatics for Robin.
There you go.
So +10.
That's what I like at the moment.
What's that?
Said I'm struggling to find a shape that I like him.
Oh yeah.
You're going back to the first one, but I'm like, I want to make it a bit more cartoony, but
I like what you're cooking up there. That's the first one, right?
yeah.
I don't know if I was paying attention to the other one.
Performance proficiency. That's actually not a bad idea. Performance, because he does like, especially as Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
Is that performance or I guess yeah. I guess
I would put it more as performance to like maintain that idea of this like billionaire playboy. I also. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'd say performance as well with that.
So intimidation, he'd have definitely expertise on this. So there are 3. So +15 to intimidation. He's very intimidating. Investigation. So he's gonna be 12. Actually thinking that will be another expertise, and then we'll just do perception, performance.
Wait 1 second. Be back in a minute.
Oh, and insight, I think.
Right, he's just like one of those characters, just like, yeah, kind of everything. He's just that annoying player that's yo, I'm good at everything.
Well, yeah, but like it makes sense though.
Oh, for sure, But like once you actually put it into stats, it's like, oh wow, yeah, he's.
Okay. So I have him down for athletics, history, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, and performance. I'm very happy with that. Stealth is the last one. I need to do stealth. Again, double on this one, so plus 19. Damage vulnerabilities, none. Resistance, I'm going to say probably bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical. And then maybe poison.
Poison.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that he... Yeah, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons. Damage immunities. I don't think he's immune to anything. No. Condition immunities, charmed. Well, no, because he's been shown as being charmed a few times. Poison ivy.
Right, I was gonna say fear, but you know, you got Scarecrow that, like, yeah, he finds a solution to it, but he's not immune to it.
Maybe instead of immunities, you give him advantage on saving
Oh, there you
throws
go.
of that sort.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
like
I'm
that.
thinking. Because if we're going for just like average Batman, like, you know, the kind of amalgamation, especially like in a more fantasy environment, I definitely think that, yeah, he would train himself to have advantage, but like he is shown being charmed several times. He does get frightened by things like Scarecrow, or even some of like Mad Hatter and Hush and some of the other ones. You can like really crank it up, you know. Wondering if there's any condition immunities I want to do then. Tempted to say exhausted because he can go so far.
I like that face you're doing, Matt. Do you find yourself starting with the face of characters a lot?
Yeah, like I was talking about this on my stream earlier. I tend to always start with the eyes.
Yeah,
because that gives like the mood for the rest of it.
Yeah,
normally,
definitely sets the vibe. Yeah.
I'm definitely just gonna go over the top now, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely like a shapes person, so I gotta like find the silhouette, you know, and the body language, and then the smaller details kind of come out within that. That's what I'm like I'm kind of finding over time that, like, yeah, when I do a sketch, I enjoy it, but then I end up finding that I'm like, I lose some of the energy of just like kind of being a painter and blocking things in with my approach, you know, when I'm then just kind of going in and filling in the shapes that I've determined ahead of time. So I'm trying to play around with, you know, just the free form. I'm rambling. Blocking in. I had an instructor in college that pointed out kind of the groups of artists of being more draftsmen, you know, that see things through lines versus, you know, sort of the painters that see things as, you know, blocked in shapes. So I think I fall into the latter category.
Yeah, I'll definitely just start going at it, and if I don't if I'm not feeling it after a while, I just start again.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of sometimes it's a lot of wasted work, but
Right. I love the shapes that you use though. You know, because it's like, you know, they're like kind of more cartoony, but it's not like it's like goofy, you know? It's not caricatures necessarily. You know, it's still like all the pieces of armor and everything has its purpose, you know. But they're just kind of a little bit more levity to the look of them, which I respect.
I'm just about to get rid of that. Sometimes, like, I think I do need to start with the body on this one because I've kind of got what I want to do with the face. I just need to get this like big body shape in first, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got the little sprightly, you know, Robin leaping in the air, and if you've got the just like a, you know, tank next to him. So do you find when you're doing commission work that you know, doing the people's characters that you kind of go through a similar sort of discovery phase, or do you find that you pull together more references, you know, if there's like more of a specific character in mind?
Well, to
Does
be
that make
fair,
sense?
because it's D&D stuff, people who are commissioning it have a very strong
Right.
idea, and at least they always have a description of their characters. Sometimes I can get pages of all their backstory, so you know, like, they love it. And I will admit, I don't read it all because I get the broad strokes of it,
Right.
especially if
Yeah.
it's pages upon pages. It's like,
Right.
I respect that you've gone into that much detail, because you can tell most people sometimes they have this document and they just keep adding to it, and it's amazing. But yeah, I like to have description, like a visual description, and then some personality traits, what the character's like, because if you can work that into it, then it always brings it to life a bit better. And a lot of people who like to commission, they've also had other people do it, so they send those references through as well. So it's like, oh, I know what they're looking for. I can just do my take on it and add a few more different things that I think will be fun and stuff.
I get that a lot as a DM. It's like I have people send like big backstories, and some people send like 1 or 2 sentences or a paragraph, and it's like, okay, that's for level 1, that's great. But I had someone send me literally a 14-page backstory for their level 1 character, and they sent me the document, and I immediately replied, and I was like, I'm not reading all that. That's great. I'm so happy that you love this character so much. I was like,
love the passion.
I was like, they're level 1. They have not accomplished all of that. So, you know, they're like, and I was like, in their defense, they're like, well, like the last 2 pages is like their like family tree, and this. I was like, cool. Still, probably not going to use all of that. Even I was like, if you're level 1, you have not accomplished. Like Batman can have 14 pages of backstory. Your level 1 character does not.
Yeah, when I make a character, I just I tend not to even give them a backstory. I'm just like, right, this is the kind of character they are. This is how I'm going to kind of play it. I will let the game decide what their kind of like backstory is. Like if the DM has an idea, like after meeting my character and stuff, like, oh, that'd be a cool way to discover things and stuff.
For sure. Yeah, I like to find a reason why they're, you know, kind of a motivation, I guess. But I don't want to have too much that it's like there's no room to evolve if you have just completely laid everything out. It's like this is who they are. They've gone through a whole life already. and sometimes that can be cool. It's like, okay, this is kind of a turning point in their life, I played an older character in one of our games, and it's like, okay, he kind of was set in his ways, but then he kind of was at that fork in the road. But yeah, having room to be flexible, even if you do write that much, hopefully you're not just like, oh, we need to get to all these things that I have laid out for you. Here's my shopping list for what we're going to do in this game.
Yeah, because then as well, if something from your backstory that you thought it'd be cool to come into the game later on doesn't, you're not disappointed.
Oop, pardon me.
Rail anything. I don't think I do anyway, but if there's like an item or something that everyone's been really cautious about touching and stuff, I'll be the one after a bit. I'll see what everyone else kind of wants to do, and if we're kind of getting to that point where, oh, what are we doing? I just go, oh, I grab it. Fuck it.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. If everyone's
let's get this
metagaming
game
too
going.
much, right? That
I-
was, speaking of bringing characters into D&D, I had a straight up Ninja Turtle, my guy Caravaggio. And he was very much just like, yep, he dives in. He's sort of like an adrenaline junkie where he's just like, yep, let's get into the fun here.
Yeah, I had a swashbuckling rogue turtle called
Oh yeah.
Bubba, and I managed to convince the DM to let me have a baby mimic because he was carrying this little chest wrapped in chains. And yeah, it was awesome. I miss that game.
Oh yeah, you gotta love that stuff.
Nice. I do remember Caravaggio so well. I was so happy to like help with the subclass and everything for Caravaggio.
Right. Yeah, that was another instance where it's like, okay, how about we just homebrew this? And
Yeah. But like whenever I play, like as opposed to DMing, where I have to be everything. Like when I play, I'm usually the very motivated type to be like, let's get this done, and like I want to ask questions and do stuff. And I typically play a himbo, not always, but like I will rush headfirst into danger if it means we can move the story along.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially having seen the other side as the DM, you're kind of feeling like, okay, I'm going to help them out by, moving things along rather than them having to sort of find an organic way of pushing us.
Yeah. Ina said 3 to 4 knives is a good amount of backstory. That's something that I do sometimes. I recommend. It's called knife theory, where you want to give backstory that has knives, and knives are things like, oh, I have a family member I care about, or like a possession that I lost or want to have, or like a knife is something that I can be like, oh, this is great, and use it to stab you with later.
Yeah.
So like during the campaign, I can be like, cool, and use it against you.
And that can always be a motivating force too.
Right.
That gives you a device.
But I'm gonna switch off of Chris working on Robin because we just had screen full of crotch for a second there. But no, I think that like 3 or 4 things is like max all you need for backstory. And even then, like going in with practically nothing, of just like, here's their general vibe. It's like, cool, we can start with there and we're good to go.
Yeah, especially when if you're starting at level 1.
Yeah.
Or level 3, because I think starting at level 1 for me is always just like it's a bit of a slug, because most things, if the dice go badly, can kill you. So I always feel you're a bit underpowered.
Yeah.
So I think starting at level 3 makes them green enough, but also have a little bit of an experience. So unless you're like starting off from the village, like your Link, you've woken up, you go on an adventure, yeah, start level 1. If you're meeting in a tavern, that's the kind of typical start of an adventure, or you're meeting on a job, you should start at level 3 because then you've got room to grow, but you can add a bit more of character and also say like he's done a little job here or there.
Yeah.
Right,
nothing
they're a little
major.
bit seasoned. Yeah, they've seen the world a bit.
I like to do something like that because then you can kind of say like I've done enough that I have my subclass. That I figured out like this is how I'm gonna fight, this is what I'm gonna do. You know, especially like level 1 I think is fun if we're starting with like, oh no, we're gonna start that you're like, oh yeah, you're like clearing the rats out of the basement of the tavern, you know, like you're just doing odd jobs around, and then like the actual story of crazy shit happening begins once everyone is level 3. If you're all willing to roleplay out, it's like roleplay should be your number 1 focus from like levels 1 through 3, and then you start getting into like combat and other mechanics from there, and it gets more and more complex. And then like once you get to really high levels, well, you can blast through most enemies, even really high CR stuff. So again, it becomes more focused on like we need to be able to roleplay this out or have creative solutions as opposed to like, okay, meteor swarm, fireball, lightning bolt at 8th level, like it just doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah, like I think because me and my friend Anton, you can follow on Twitter as well, Anton the Storyteller. He's an amazing DM because like he preps for, he's got a world that he's built over years, and he can tell you everything about it. He can probably tell you all the fauna about it, like because we went proper off the rails, not meaning to, but it felt like we hadn't gone off the rails because we went in and found this whole other aspect of the story. Like we never actually reached our goal that we set off. It was meant to be like a week's travel to where we were going, and it took us probably over a year to get to the point we're going because we went in a different direction.
I've had
that's
games
great.
like that. I've had games like that.
Yeah.
I usually try, like, as a DM to, like, keep things moving, or, like, be like, hey, don't forget this important, but, like, if the side quest becomes more fun than the main adventure, I'd be like, let's lean into this for a while. I've had where it's gotten away from me. I actually had a game that Chris was in, where it was like, oh, one little diversion off to the elemental planes became, like, a 10-session long ordeal.
It's like, how did we get here?
And then I was like, no, you're right, and I had to kind of like dial it back, and be like, okay, you're able to kind of like get through, like, let's get you back to the material plane. Because they're like, aren't there pirates trying to kill us this whole time? Like,
I thought there was like a world-ending thing that we were working on.
like,
Oh yeah, Anton has all these timers and stuff that's going on, to the world is still living. Because when we eventually got to the place we were meant to go, the thing we were probably meant to like stop had happened and stuff, and this whole demon had took over
Oh wow.
the city and stuff. So like we fucked up pretty bad on that.
It's like, oh, this is one of those games, yeah, like Witcher, where the clock keeps going. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh boy. They're not just waiting for us to show up to continue their storyline. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it does feel like as well, like speaking of levels, it feels like you should stop at a point, because if people get too powerful, then it's just like you're saying, you're spamming spells and stuff like.
Oh yeah, it's I enjoy high level gameplay, but the challenges of high level gameplay is almost never going to be combat. Like, because you start tossing around such really crazy you know, like damages that it just starts to feel like a sack of hit points. So it's more like the threat there has to be like, oh, this can do stuff that you are solving a problem more than you're just throwing damage back and forth.
Yeah, like the most recent game we were playing in, pretty much all we bumped into loads of these bugbears where you think, you're gonna just kill them and stuff, but no, we like befriended them and stuff, and like they ended up being part of our town and like proper real NPC characters that we all like care for and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, sometimes those throwaway characters that end up being a big part of it.
There's like there was like 4 NPCs that were meant to die in the first part in the first game. Like zombies attacked this tavern, but we ended up saving them, and they've become like our main like go-to characters that we talk to and get advice from and stuff.
That's
And he
great.
told us like after a few months of playing, it's like you know these guys were meant to die in session 1.
I've had plenty of times like that where it's like the party just takes to an NPC and like I'm like, they weren't supposed to be a part of this. It was just like some random, whatever. And it's kind of nice when the party like cares so much and like does all this effort. I'm going to real quickly. Oh, I'm loving Batman so far. I'm loving.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I found something I'm happy with now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm working. So I've definitely given him evasion. I gave him a feature, a League of Assassins training. Say he has advantage on saving throws made to resist or end being charmed, exhausted, frightened, stunned, or paralyzed. I think all of those fit. I also am going to give him what? One of these puppies is working. Something to escape being grappled, because he's usually pretty good at that.
I remember the was one of the Critical Role one shots with Owlbear Man,
Yes.
played by Taliesin Jaffe, which was just straight up Batman, and he did Barbarian Rogue, which I think mechanically is not supposed to work together, but was amazing to go from stealth to total rage. I'm kind of getting that vibe from what you got right now, just like this just wrecking ball.
Yes.
I like the little spikes on the shoulder and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I know I need to get that bat symbol on the chest, but I'm trying to think of a different way of doing it. I'm thinking of maybe a buckle and get some more belts on him, so I can put some like daggers or throw in kunai. Is it kunai they're called? The ninja?
Oh yeah. Yeah, go take the 90s route. There's never enough buckles and straps.
Kingdom Hearts Batman.
Right? Just, never enough pockets and straps. Throw a machine gun on there, and you're good to go. Still haven't resolved this quarterstaff situation. I fought with it in the sketch for a little while. I'm like, okay, let's get into it.
I'd say they would have a bag of holding on him each as well, because Bruce Wayne, or Sir Bruce Wayne, whatever he is in this world, would have the money to purchase
right
many
or at the
bags
very
of
least
holding.
Yeah, each little pouch is like a different pocket dimension. What are the levels? There's like the bag of holding.
So there's a handy haversack, a bag
handy
of holding,
haversack, yeah,
and then a portable hole.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, handy haversack is nice because there's like the multiple pockets. They're like individually smaller, but like there's multiple pockets. Nice.
Yeah, I almost get that. Yeah, I almost get that vibe more with the utility belt. Yeah.
Right, and then, uh, I would say the bag of holding is classic. The portable hole is nice because you can like fold it up and like unfront. It's like a 6 foot with like 10 foot deep hole, which is
They've been
very
doing some
nice.
fun stuff in the most recent season of or campaign of Critical Role. But also that has its limitations because you have to lay it out flat too.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing I never play with Magic stuff. I don't bother with the like components and stuff. It's just like you're a wizard, you can do magic. The spell slots are like your MP.
Yeah, if you can get into it, and some people have done some cool stuff with it. And I like it kind of more from a flavor standpoint of just like it kind of gives you some maybe some hints at ways that you could be performing this spell. It's like, oh, I take out this pocket, this particular bone dust, and draw this circle with gum arabic, whatever it is. I've seen some of that used as a flavoring guide. But not necessarily like, oh, well, did you go shopping before this battle? Well, can't do that spell, sorry.
Yeah, like if they want to bring out all the components and stuff, that is fine. But I won't penalize them for like you said,
right.
Did you buy
that? So do you run games as well, or?
I have in the past. I think my most successful one is I did this homebrew Christmas special where everyone was part of the Jolly Guard, which was Santa's like defensive elves.
Oh yeah.
And then they called off because there's been there was like a fire outside like the borders of the Santa's village, so they go there and they get attacked by awakened Christmas trees.
Oh my gosh.
And then they hear loads of explosions and stuff back at Santa's village, and they get there, and Krampus occultists have invaded. So they're killing off all these Krampus occultists, and they had to fight a mutated Rudolph, and then Krampus possessed Santa.
Oh, that's awesome. I definitely respect that. That was playing in one of Brian's Christmas one shots. That was the birth of one of my favorite characters that has seen different iterations. Rudolfo del Rosso, the wild magic barbarian reindeer man.
Yeah, I made them all like custom Jolly Guard elf traits. Like I said, there was one of the wizards was a toy maker, so they could summon basically a minion to fight with them. They could have a choice between 80s robot and a little nutcracker guard. And then there was like a baker that could bake cookies that would give basically potions, but also some extra buffs. I did a take on the barbarian. I can't remember exactly what that was, but yeah, it was fun. I've still got it written down somewhere with all the stats. I could probably put it together and release it as like a little play it yourself.
Right.
Because I ran it twice for 2 different groups, and everyone seemed to enjoy it. So. And the second group to play with, we did do a follow up when they went to the Easter Bunny's domain, and then I threw in the Yule lads.
The Yule lads.
And so the Christmas cat was there, massive cat that attacked them, and then there was all the different Yule lads, and they fought a few of those like Spoon Licker and Door Sniffer and stuff.
I do remember when I did my Christmas one where Rodolfo was, which that one was like a very last minute like, okay, I have a Christmas thing, let's just do it. And it was like they fought. I think if I remember correctly, it's like my original intention was to do Krampus, and then I changed it because like they guessed Krampus right away.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna. It was originally going to be Rudolph, but because I had a Rudolph character, you had to change it.
That was well, yes, it was Rudolph, and then you said you wanted to play Rudolph, and I was like, okay, so I made a Krampus, and then like you all guessed it like 10 seconds in. You're like, oh, Santa's in danger, probably Krampus, and I was like, all right, so I
No.
I changed it.
Nuh-uh.
If you're doing a Christmas special where you're playing as Christmassy characters, the bad guy's got to be Krampus.
I ended up making it a Mary Lloyd.
I thought he showed up in there. I think you did a couple things, right?
I did a couple.
Yeah, and you played that. You played that with a couple groups, and I think you did a couple different takes on it. But there's so many fun directions you can go.
Have to lean into the silliness. I know one of the like funniest ones I did. I did a Halloween one shot that the villain was this is an American thing, but was a Thanksgiving turkey. So it was like the idea was like the villain was like this giant turkey who was upset that like Christmas and other holidays were like encroaching on his holiday. So he started like lashing out, and he's like, I've already defeated Christmas. He's like, Halloween is next. And it was like just so stupid. I remember I included the mayor from Nightmare Before Christmas. That one.
Right. Yeah.
Because I said it was an Eton who his different heads were going back and forth and talking, which I thought was a fun way to do it.
Oh yeah.
I did a Halloween one shot called Nana Baruga's House of Fun, and they were all invited to this like horror haunted house thing, and they I basically made my version of the Resi 4 merchant, and you'd earn like coins that you could buy. You'd find trick or treat coins, and you'd flip it, and if you either got a trick or a treat, and I had a list of treats and a list of basic things that would fuck them up. Like one person got turned into a chicken, the next room. And each room was like a little pocket dimension where they'd have to solve something or fight something. Like there was just battle rooms, and then there was puzzle rooms and stuff like that. I had one room which was a bit convoluted, which was it was a Friday the 13th riff. So they ended up being on this lakeside camp site, and they basically had to gather like not gas cans, but basically these power things that activate the door to get out, while I had this Jason monster coming at them, which they put that it would move 1 or 2 spaces at a time. Unkillable. You could down it, but it would get back up. So like Michael Myers, Jason kind of enemy, which you couldn't just flat out kill.
Oh wow.
But we never got to that bit because when you plan a one shot, sometimes you overdo stuff and
right, yeah,
don't gauge how long it will take to figure out this one puzzle.
Yeah,
it turns into like a 3-shot.
Yeah, but I would love to play that again as a little mini campaign.
That's awesome.
Go back and change some things because I thought it was quite fun.
Yeah, I've been finding more and more just leaning into the kind of, I guess, derivative stuff, not feeling like okay, everything has to be like this original like serious story. It's like it's okay if it's wacky and just straight up, yeah, you're Batman and Robin, you're a Ninja Turtle, you're doing Christmas, Halloween, whatever. because I feel like, you know, especially for me, I don't have a ton of book knowledge within like D&D lore. So for anything that I can kind of draw from, you know, knowledge like that, you know, you can really have fun with it.
Same. Like I think the only real D&D book I've played is the starter adventure Lost Mines. Everything else has been homebrew.
Since, you know, like being a pro game is my job, it's like full time. It's like I have done every single module like multiple times at this point. The only one that I haven't done multiple times now is I have 2 groups currently working through Dragonlance, and then so I haven't finished it, but I have 2 groups working through it at the same time, and then I have the heist one, the Keys from the Golden Vault. I have not run every module in it multiple times yet, but I've done almost every single heist at least once. So it's like pretty much every single official thing I've run like so many times. And I will say, I love doing homebrew stuff, but I just have, personally for the sake of my own sanity, I run modules so that I'm not keeping track of 10 different homebrew games at once. But also like, it's I have a lot of people who are like, oh, we want to do Curse of Strahd, or we want to do Party of Dragon Heist, or we want to do, you know, this one or that one. And it's just easy to run. I have a few of them I've run so many times, I can run it in my sleep at this point. Like, I just know it backward and forward. That's where I start getting really weird with it and just including random crazy stuff. And
right. You do a good job of kind of like sort of, yeah, taking the structure of a module, but then kind of putting your own twists on them.
Yeah, I try very
like,
hard.
I would love to play through them all. Just it always just ends up being a homebrew one that I end up joining.
Yeah. I found a lot of times people who vehemently were like, oh, I only ever do homebrew stuff, like I don't know about modules, and I'm like, well, try it. And they're like, oh, this is really interesting, and I'm like, yes, they're better than you might think. And I think people assume because they're like rewritten that they're like boring and predictable, and I'm like,
cookie cutter. Yeah.
They have a lot of really cool twists and turns, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, my experience has been the DM. You can kind of tell they're reading it from a book, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you got to be careful of for sure.
Yeah. And then when I've tried to run official stuff, I feel like I'm just reading from a book.
Right.
Like when I started Lost Mines, doing my first DM of it, I quickly threw in some homebrew stuff. You know, that first Goblin Cave. I made this like crystal dagger thing that infects the person who's using it and stuff, and I had this like fucked up crystal version of her appear when they left the cave to like forebode something. And we didn't get far into it, but like she didn't pick up that if she keeps hold of this dagger, that's what she's going to turn into. Like it was a future echo kind of thing.
Mm.
But yeah, I'd love to play some of the big campaigns.
There's a few that I always recommend, like Storm King's Thunder. I love because it's just so huge. There's so much stuff in it. That one can be a little daunting, even, especially if you've never run a module. It's hard to be like, you're like flipping back and forth because there's so much information in there. But it's really, really cool. But Rime of the Frost Maiden, I've run it 6 or 7 times now, I want to say. Maybe even more. I'd have to like recount, but so excellent. Like every time, there's so many ways you can go with it, and it's like got some really, really cool stuff. And that's another one that like where you think that module is going to go is not where it goes. I've had some people who are like, oh yeah, and then we do this. I'm like, nope. And when they like get it, they're like, wow, I did not see that coming. Like, yep. But
Well, you've also intentionally, diverted because
yes.
there's people that will like read ahead in books and like, nope.
I haven't intentionally changed. Though I will say, I like to.
Photoshop is frozen.
That'll happen.
And I've not saved it.
Oh no! Hang in there. It's looking great.
Yeah, so you might want to switch the feed while I try and sort this out.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. 'Cause that one's definitely looking great out of all the ones you've done.
I will say, I want to type all this out before I show it off, but I am happy with how I'm coming along with Batman sets. I will say he's pretty brutal because I'm giving him unarmed strikes and then his batarangs, and he can swap between the two of them. But these unarmed strikes, I'm giving him like maneuvers he can do on top, and they're getting pretty ridiculous.
I'm having fun with my Robin.
Thank you.
Back in business.
Ooh!
I've saved it now. Just in case.
I will say, I'm not trying to use this as a way to promote my own stuff, but I was recently working on Spliced, my upcoming game, and I like had saved, and then I remember I was like on a fucking roll where I was like, hell yeah, and I'm like typing, and I'm like, and then they do this, and they do this, and I'm like formatting carefully, and then doing this, I'm like, yeah, and it's like, this page is looking good, and I added like 2 pages worth of stuff, and I was like, I did like 3 hours of work on it that I was like really proud of. And then my computer just like the program just like, and like crashed, and it was because there was a Windows update that basically forced it closed. Like, it just couldn't handle it at the same time. And I was ready to scream. Like, I was losing my mind. I was so upset. But thankfully, I found out that it does the, like, auto-recovery thing. And I, like, pulled it up, and I was like, no! I was just devastated. But like, oh, here, the last time we kind of auto-saved it for you was right here. And it was like, I lost, like, 2 sentences instead of 2 whole pages. And I was so relieved that I thought I might weep. But I instantly saved, like, after every other sentence. I was like, saving.
Yeah, that is one of Photoshop's better updates. Still, when it happens, you're like, I haven't saved. How much am I going to lose?
Yeah, Procreate's been pretty good about that so far.
Oh, I love Procreate. I do pretty much everything in there now.
Yeah. I do miss like being able to have more layers and more like editing capabilities that Photoshop has. But overall, it's felt so much more intuitive for me.
Yeah, and like better quality of lines. Like I get a lot of compliments on like how crisp my lines are, and like. It's just Procreate, standard inking brush.
Right, yeah.
But I think it might also have to do with the fact like it's just very cartoony, so like it's got that hard kind of black outline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be interested to see these side by side with like the bold black outlines, and then I don't use any black, and really not too much outlines. But I think that'll kind of play into the juxtaposition of juxtaposition of Batman being this dark, heavy character versus Robin, this little sprightly, colorful, lad.
I mean, that's the fun,
I like that idea that you're doing with the emblem on the buckle there.
Cheers.
Is that going to be kind of the like sort of Robert Pattinson functional Batarang just right there?
It's just going to be like a belt book. I'm going to put some batarangs on the belt though.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Then
The only thing with that batarang in Batterson is once he's thrown it, he's going to be like, shit, I need that as part of my costume.
My look, the drip.
Hey, where did that go? Where did it bounce off to?
Hey, guys,
nobody move.
Can we put the lights on for a second?
Everybody stop.
I'm not having fun.
Hello. I deciding if I should give him 4 maneuvers or just 3. They're already pretty complex. I'll just do the 3 because his action block is fucking huge. Like, look at all the shit he can do. I'm like, all right, maybe I should calm down a little bit. He's better. He can do all of these things.
Beefy action. So, what is everyone's favorite Batman film?
I'm between 2, and the way that I justify it is, like, live action, it's still going to be Dark Knight for me. I think that, like, the Batman, like, the Robert Pattinson is a very close second now, but, I kind of want to see where they go with the other ones, like, in the sequels to that. But, Dark Knight is just, it just works so well. But animated Mask of the Phantasm, it's just so fucking good.
Yeah, I would agree with you on the live action one, but animated, Turn of the Joker.
Ooh,
Batman Beyond.
That is a good one. I think because of like the nostalgia of like where I was in my life when I first watched Mask of the Phantasm, there is a bit of like, it's just so special to me.
The nostalgia factor is a big one. That's why I have such a hard time deciding myself. It's like, well, it's like my first Batman that like where I fell in love with it was like animated series and then like Michael Keaton, you know.
Yeah.
But then I've kind of like found a new love with each one, and because I grew up with the Schumacher ones, even though those get a lot of hate, I still kind of I love the ridiculousness of them.
Yeah.
So it's like there's something about a lot of them, and even within the what?
So you love those bat nips?
Yeah.
I like them buns of steel. What can I say? My dad and I would always joke about because they made like a sound effect and everything when they were showing off all the different parts of his bod. Like, oh, okay.
Yes, I think I'm done with the rough.
It looks amazing.
I love that. That's awesome.
Amazing.
It is. Thank you.
Makes me think of the Spider-Verse, like Kingpin just being like just this square with like a face, just like
legs.
It's just so broad. I love, and I like the little legs. It makes me think of that T-shirt. Do you remember that T-shirt I showed you where it's I like how they draw feet on Dragon Ball Z, and it's just the little boots with like the Let's take a look at Robin. It's coming along, looking good.
Yeah.
Very different vibes.
Right? He's just a guy. He's just a little scamp.
Just a little Robin. He's never done nothing to nobody.
If I was to put Robin on top of Batman, he would literally be this size.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think
he's like a little familiar.
Yeah, like Batman will grab him and then shook him at enemies.
Oh my gosh.
I could almost
definitely like Kratos, you know, and what's it? Atreus, yeah.
That's how I drew them.
I can definitely see almost like the pseudo dragon familiar of like just a little tiny, just messing with people, kind of like having a pixie familiar.
Just chucks Robin. and he just kind of goes crazy like a little raccoon or something.
I need to work on Robin's. I'll have to do that probably between streams because Batman is becoming a lot more complex than I originally envisioned. But Batman, I'm not going to half-ass it.
I mean, we might have to kind of revisit this anyway, because like I still want to draw Batman. You might take on it.
Yeah. Okay. Bonus action.
I
love
love
Robin,
Robin,
though.
Robin onto this.
Right. Perched. Or a literal Robin that landed on his shoulder.
Yeah, you'd be a Kenku.
That's I considered. I was like, should I like go for it and anthropomorphize Robin here? It's like, no, but I did consider it. Yeah, I as a kid, like I said, Batman was like the OG. There's some good pictures of me with my diaper and then like the little homemade costume and like a Batman. And then my aunt would make costumes for like the circus and for different theater productions. So I had always the best costumes with like the built-in sculpted muscles for Batman. But then weirdly, I like went from Batman to then I liked Robin, and from the Schumacher movies with all the muscles, she went even more wild with the muscles on Robin. So he was beefier than the Batman that I had done the year before. And then the little buzz cut. So I do have a special place for my boy Robin.
It'd be nice to see, like, film-wise, just like a silent Batman.
That'd be very
Especially if you had a Robin that is like kind of the talker, and then he's just.
Yeah, just if he proper leans into that intimidation mode, and like that's one of the reasons for having the Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Like a few years ago, me and a friend were talking about like a kind of like Batman-esque TV show be interesting to do. So you've got like the Batman kind of superhero, but you do not show who Batman is, like the Batman character is, and you're following different. Like you only see Batman when he's Batmaning. You don't see any of his backstory or whatever. Obviously, it's not Batman because everyone you just know it's Bruce Wayne, but
right.
And you follow a number of different characters in that world, and like you'll be always trying to figure out like, could they be Batman?
Oh yeah,
stuff like that. Like you focus more like maybe following the villains to get that kind of like backstory stuff, and then when the superhero turns up, it's an event kind of thing. Like, oh shit, he's here.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That was I will say I really love that idea. That was something I actually really loved about that Young Justice show, is like they're dealing with their problems, and then like when Superman and Batman and like other members of the Justice League show up, it's like they're established, they come in, they just like swoop in and do their thing, and it's like, oh, they're on a whole other level beyond what we're capable of. And it was interesting to see Batman not as like, oh, this, he's the main character. He's like, he's a member of the Justice League, and he just, it's like, oh, comes in and saves the day, and then he leaves, and I remember they never perfectly addressed it in Teen Titans, but there was a thing where he's like, oh, I already have a father figure or something, and then it just shows like a bunch of bats flying away from a cave or something.
Oh my gosh, such a good show.
Oh, I was actually rewatching Teen Titans recently, because I was like, I was thinking about
the animated one.
Yeah, the Cartoon Network one from back in the aughts.
Oh yeah, not Titans or what? Yeah, the CW. Yeah.
But like I was thinking about Cyborg, and I always thought he was like such a cool character. But I was like, that's absolutely the best iteration of him, in my opinion. Is gonna be his Teen Titans version. I also like that he kind of stays on as like a mentor to, like in the comics, it's like he stays with the Teen Titans long after he is no longer a team to like help mentor like new members, and he's kind of like a backup, like, you know, operator for them, which is nice. And then of course, like, my wives, like Raven and Starfire, are just like amazing. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was just so in love with Raven and Starfire, and then like, you know, I was like, oh, I had the biggest crush on both of them. You know, was it 2000 and I gotta look up the years when it came up, but I was like the perfect age for the Teen Titans show when it was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a good show. I feel Teen Titans Go gets too much hate.
Yeah,
I think because it's like such a turn.
Completely different thing.
Like, right, you have to like separate them totally. Yeah, exactly.
The Teen Titans is kind of a victim of its own success in that it's so good, everything will now be compared against it, and that's kind of not fair to compare it against it. Especially for something like Teen Titans Go, where it's a wildly different vibe. That they're not trying to remake it; they're doing a new show. So
yeah, it's like that Thundercats Raw got loads of shit. Like, I've watched a bit of it, and it's what you expect it to be. But some of the animation action scenes are really nicely animated.
So I've heard some good things, yeah.
And the way people were kicking off about that, it's like, well, hang on, you had your serious reboot of Thundercats, and like it was good, but it bombed.
Yeah.
You can't complain and go, "Oh, we want proper Thundercats." It's like it is
right.
what it is. And, like everyone comparing like the cartoony styles and then saying about like the original ones is like, if you look at all those cartoons back from that age, they all look the same. Then it's just a different look that's going on at the moment.
Right.
There's also like, it is funny to watch, especially like He-Man, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, like the comics from like that era, where it's like, this was a plot to sell toys. This is nothing deeper than a plot to sell toys. So what was great is like the showrunners were like, well, as long as we're selling toys, the toy companies don't care what we do. So they would just have wild stories, and so it's like nothing had to make sense. Nothing is like they just would have crazy swingy powers and do all this stuff. And then there was starting to be an aspect of people being like, this is annoying that this is just a plot to sell toys, and they just don't care about the structure. They're just doing weird shit. So they started to experiment with like, what kind of stories can we tell? And I think that's why in the 90s and aughts there was like such an interesting level of like really silly, like no depth kid shows, and like really intense story driven kid shows that like flew under the radar, and people didn't realize how good they were until like years later. Like I think about like Samurai Jack, and like when it was coming out, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And he's like a samurai. I watched it as an adult, and I'm like, this is some incredible storytelling. Like, like as a kid, I don't want to say like I didn't deserve a story this good, but it's like they didn't need to put this much effort into it, and they did, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah,
like
the cinematography in Samurai Jack. Some episodes are just masterpieces. Like there's episodes where there's no dialogue, but the storytelling is so clear.
Oh yeah. I remember seeing Phil Lamar said like he loved playing that character because it's like he gets so much credit for being Samurai Jack, and he's like I would do like 2 words in an episode and that'd be it. You know, like he's like there's my favorite single episode of the entire show is there's one where there's several villains who like meet up at a crossroads to be like, oh, we're gonna take out Samurai Jack, and they all talk about like their plan to ambush him. I was like, oh, I'll do this, and I have these crazy weapons, and I'll do this, and then he'll react like this, and then I'll counter with this. And someone else is like, oh, well, I'm gonna do this thing, and like, and they all talk about their plan, and then finally at the end, Jack comes through and stops all of them, like, no effort, just like, and just is like, all right, and defeats all of them resoundingly and just walks away and doesn't say a single word the entire episode. And it's
One
like,
of my favorite episodes is the one where they dress up as a black and a white ninja garb,
Oh my
and they're
gosh,
fighting in the light and the shadow. It's
beautiful. Yeah.
so good.
Unbelievable that was a kid show. Like, that is like, if I was watching this, like, just like high art, like Hong Kong, martial arts film, from like the 80s, and it did that, I would be like, yes. But like, knowing that that's in a kid show, you're like, what? Like, it's so unexpected.
Yeah, and having all the enemies as robots, such a genius move, because then they could put so much like violence and gore in it and get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, because it was Andy Tartakovsky and I think Craig McCracken worked on that too. I have to double check. But it was like, they're just saying, they're like, oh yeah, we wanted to do this, and then when we're showing the like storyboards, they're like, there's no way. And they're like, oh, well, they're robots, it's just oil. And they're like, oh, okay, no problem. And that was it. That was the end of the discussion. Like, we could do anything we wanted as long as it was spraying oil on. And I'm like, and even in the pilot, he like slices through like the scarab robot and just like, like oil all over him. And he's like covered in, and they like start backing away because they're terrified of him. And I'm like, yeah, if this was a martial arts movie, he'd be drenched in blood.
And they're helping cute little puppies is the premise of that episode.
Yeah. So silly and so fun. Or there's the one where it's like, you find out that it's like, oh, this creature is like stampeding, and he like helps stop it, but then he learns that like they're being violently oppressed by these like horrible little aliens. But like, they're like elephant people called woolies. Like, they're like woolly mammoth people. And you're like, okay. Like, yes, you have saved the woolies. And you're like, alright, that kind of undercuts it a little bit, reminds you that it's a kid's show. But it's like about helping a violent insurrection against a like a fascistic government.
But that's why it works.
Exactly. I think the juxtaposition, we can see, it works so well. That's why this idea that like it has to be totally serious or it has to be totally bubblegum, is crazy.
Yeah.
One of my favorite episodes as well is when it's basically the anthill mob, all those little tiny gangsters.
Oh yeah.
You've got a gangster samurai Jack. It's just it's brilliant.
I also love the one where it's the robot detective, and it's like a noir that he's like narrating the whole thing. And he's like, oh yeah, it's all for the this like woman, and it's like it's his pug. It's like it's his pet dog. And you're like, oh, and it's so good. And then like Jack puts him down because like he's investigating and trying to track down Jack. And then like Jack feels bad for killing him at the end because he's like, oh, he just cared about his dog and was doing it. Like, so brilliant, so brilliant. I don't know if either of you saw the newest, like when they came back and did the final season.
Right.
It's amazing.
So good. I found out so many people were like kind of upset and sad with the ending that in the video game there's a different ending that you can unlock for like getting all the collectibles. Where it kind of like works out in the end, and I was like, that's kind of nice. They didn't need to do that. But like I think Andy Tartakovsky was like, you can choose which ending is canon. And I was like, that's nice.
Have you seen the trailer for the new Tartakovsky show?
I have not.
Yes.
There's like a crazy. It's like a steampunky
Something
cowboy
unicorn.
Robot, and is that what it's called? Yeah, that's right.
Something unicorn.
Yeah.
Can't think
It's
what
like,
the
oh
name
wow,
is.
that looks great. I want to see more about that because he did that other one on was it the like caveman one, right? And that didn't have any Primal.
I've seen most of season 1 and it is phenomenal. But the problem the reason I haven't watched all of it is because I'm either working or spending time with the family,
Right.
and I consume most of my media while I'm working. It's the reason why I can't listen to
Yeah,
Critical
you
Role
gotta
stuff and
watch
that,
it.
because I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
focus on it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Primal, because like it is all visual storytelling,
Yeah.
you have to watch it because the animation it's amazing.
That's why, yeah, I can't watch, any, like dubbed shows that are beautiful, but I just can't because for one, even if I'm just sitting there watching it, I'm just reading instead of like soaking in the action and the visuals. So it's tough.
I'm trying to think of the range for his Batarang. Of making it like a short bow.
I was gonna say, yeah, what's up? Because isn't there actually a boomerang too?
Yeah, but it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, but this is the Batarang. This is the next level. But I just didn't know if that was a reference point.
The range for it sucks, which is why I don't.
Oh, okay. I remember
think we should,
I got a boomerang for one of my characters, and you're like, "You sure? You want to stick with that?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. It's from his village. You trying to take away his sacred weapon?" It's like, okay, it sucks, and it sucked.
I remember you were like, "Oh," I remember so clearly. You were like you used it a couple times. And you're like, "Wow, this really sucks." Like, yeah, sorry. I think you had the same thing when you originally had Caravaggio as a.
I did him as a swashbuckler rogue as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like the sickle or whatever you were using. It was like kind of sucks, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to give him little the kamas, that you see with like ninjas, or the kasori gama where it's like on the chain. But then the closest thing was the sickle, and the sickle is really lame. Just like, oh, okay.
So I was like, well, make it a monk weapon so you can at least get multiple attacks, and then do this, and
right.
It like scales up, and when I did my Way of Silent Death, I that finally worked out. Okay, I'm getting
how many types of Batarangs are you going to give him? You should have a few different types.
I'm giving him a basic batter. I'm not going full on into the gadgets. Giving him a basic battering, but just gonna do force damage. What I'm thinking is, I'm wondering if I should do like a ricochet effect with it. I'm still deciding.
I think a way you could do the gadget thing a little bit is maybe have some Batarangs act as spell slots.
I am giving him.
Oh, it's the way of delivering a spell. Yeah.
I am giving him spells, and there's some that just like the ranger ones that just like you throw a cone of like 50 pieces of weapon, ammunition at somebody. So I'm kind of like, I would flavor that as him throwing a bunch of batarangs and stuff. So
nice.
I'm trying to do that, but I also, especially for stat blocks, it's like you want to show what they're capable of, but you also want to just stick to the main core things that are the most important, and then be like, all right, it's up to the DM to kind of flavor the rest of it. Because otherwise you have like 2-page stat blocks of like,
right.
Like, here's all the stuff. It's like, well, we got to stick to a couple attacks.
I've had to learn that lesson, on this program with you, because I'm coming from a character standpoint where it's like, oh yeah, well I can flavor it however I want, but if you're making that more universal NPC, it's got to be something that can be.
Like I said, if I was playing Batman, I would, like I said, probably Oath of Vengeance. Though, Ina made a good point for Gloomstalker Ranger, which I can definitely see.
I was thinking, Ranger could.
And I would flavor like all his spells as like his gadgets and stuff, and do that. But for a DM being able to run this and not have to, like I said, look through multiple pages of things and like be like, oh, It's like there's a reason that every monster isn't just a character sheet. It's like it's like nope, they have like 3 things they do, and that's it. Really, the sake of simplicity there.
Okay. Speaking of kind of delicate ground to tread on, you know, when it comes to like messing up nostalgia, is I was a little bit weary when I first heard about the new Ninja Turtles, but then seeing the trailer, I'm like, okay, they're kind of doing their own thing with it, you know? Because I feel like if it would have been live action, I would have been a lot more skeptical. But it's like, okay, you're at least kind of trying to take a fresh approach with it. So I'm very interested.
I'm really getting annoyed at some of the people are going, "Oh, it's just Spider-Verse." It's like, what? It's like I can see the similarity where you'd think, but visually, it's also completely different. This looks more like concept art come to life.
It's more painterly than comic book, and I think that's great. I want to see more stuff like Spider-Verse, like that.
Yeah,
I feel like was an amazing, groundbreaking thing that we're starting to see more of that kind of stylized approach. Because I feel like animation was kind of starting to go down a road of like it was getting a little bit cookie cutter, so like stuff like that. We're like, whoa, whole different language.
And I can't believe how like critical the critics are being with the Mario film.
I will say I was like worried when I saw the first reviews, and the audience reviews were a lot better. I went and saw it and I was like, this is fucking delightful. Like
amazing.
I will say I will die on this hill. I still think that it's like it feels like a slap in the face to Charles Martinet to not have him be the voice. However, if it's gonna be anyone other than him, like I was not happy about Chris Pratt, and I still think
that's kind of my one gripe with it. Yeah,
but
he did all right.
I will say he was fine. He definitely, I think, there is
not
an aspect
that
I wonder if they made him go back in the studio and like crank it up for a couple of scenes, because like it's not perfectly consistent throughout the whole movie, but he gives him a more like Italian Brooklynite kind of accent, which is still not great, but like there's a few moments of like the wahooing that I was like, okay.
Everyone could do a wahoo. It's like
it's Mario.
Let's go. Everyone can kind of do that.
But I will say Charlie Day, perfect as Luigi. Jack Black, fucking perfect as Bowser.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, I'm obsessed with
I'm
that.
one of those people that I agree with the studio not using Charles, because even though that is Mario's voice, in the Mario games, he doesn't really talk. And if you had that voice in a whole film, it would get great and fast.
I mean,
I'm sure he probably could have done a toned down version of it. I'd like to hear his like toned down version of it, but that's classic iconic Mario voice for the whole film.
I do think
too much.
I do think Martinet would have done a like kind of toned down version, but it's like he's been a pro voice actor for over 30 years. Like I know that he could do it, and it wouldn't be like unbearable. Like he could do a Mario that is truer to the source material, and like the classic voice, but is not unbelievable. It's just like it's clear that they're like, well, we want a big name celebrity because we want to sell movie tickets, and it's like, but you have the guy who's done the voice for 25 years. Just use him. And they're like, no, we want a big name because we want to sell movie tickets, and it's like that's what I take issue with. is it felt like
especially with the Mario movie, it's like you're going to sell tickets. It's the Mario movie.
exactly. It almost felt like it's like not only do we want a big name, but it's like there is undeniably going to be controversy in not picking his voice, and so going with Chris Pratt is like oh, this will drum up extra attention because people want to like see what he's gonna do wrong almost, you know. But I really enjoyed it.
I've got one complaint about it though.
Yeah.
Is they took out especially after hearing the soundtrack, they took out the "Driving Me Bananas" song, which has got loads of the Donkey Kong kind of music cues and stuff for what was it, Take On Me?
Yeah.
The inclusion of pop culture songs in that film was a bad move. It felt out of place. It wasn't funny.
That is my biggest gripe. I will say, like, there were multiple scenes where it was like you could hear some of the like nostalgic music and you're like, oh my god, and I was like feeling really great. And then they're like, they switched to like a pop culture song, and I'm like, no, there's a perfect song in like the Mario.
Have you heard the "Driving Me Bananas" bit song?
I don't know that I have, unless it's
it's on YouTube and stuff. I'll send you a link, and it's the bit where they're driving through Donkey Kong land, and
I was happy that they made a DK rap reference, which was kind of fun. But like, there was more I wanted them to do with the original songs. I will say, obviously, I found out it's Jack Black's first solo song to be a Billboard Top 100. He's only been like Top 100
really?
with Tenacious D.
It's going to be Oscar worthy now, isn't it? Apparently,
it'd be great. I mean, like, it's the Jack Blackiest song I've ever heard. That's not a Tenacious D song. But
I'll put that into
funny.
your general chat thing.
Okay. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I will say, like, there were a couple moments, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it.
I still haven't. Yeah.
But like, there were a couple moments, especially near the end, where it was like the nostalgic vibes were so strong that I was like, I'm getting a little emotional here. Like, it just brought me back to a place in my life, like playing some of the games.
Yeah,
like,
but it wasn't it wasn't like just this is nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like that was the only thing that was redeemable about it. If without nostalgia, it wouldn't really stand up.
They did,
and like the complaint about like, oh, the story was a bit simplistic. It's like, have you played a Mario game? It's just go save the princess. Like, what do you want from a Mario? You just want a fun ride, and that's what it was.
It's like, a Mario story is like, I think of like Super Mario Sunshine, where it's like, he goes on vacation to an island. When his plane lands, he's arrested for having committed a bunch of crimes there. It's like, word? You know it's not me. My plane just landed. How could I have done this already? And then, even when they find out that it's an imposter, they still make him clean up the island. And I was like, what? They never apologize for locking him up? Like... They're like, well, that'll show you for... whatever. Like, what?
I'm really hoping in the sequel we have the Koopa kids.
Oh yeah,
Bowser Jr.
Do you think there will be the Smash Brothers initiative?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, because I think there's talks of maybe a Zelda film.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Well,
I was just talking to some friends about how that
tester.
could be interesting because he's another character that doesn't talk. We were watching the '80s animated show with Zelda, and he's like, "Excuse, It's like, oh wow, and he's just like, "Yeah, kiss me, princess." Like, oh geez, maybe we shouldn't talk, Zelda.
If they do make one, they have to have a bit where someone says that to Zelda.
Yes. Which another thing I'll say is I was very happy with the D&D movie. There was a lot of references put in there that I was like, and that was kind of nice.
Yeah, like I was speaking to my group, like, because I've not played a lot of the I haven't played pretty much any of the material.
Yeah.
I bet loads of references went over my head, but I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a good starting off point to make more films.
Yeah. One of the biggest ones for me is there is a reference that it shows the party, like the kids from the 80s TV show are in it.
I got that one.
And I remember the people I went with know nothing with D&D, and I've like never played. Like my wife and she plays in several of my games, but like we went with two other people who have never played D&D in their lives, and they really enjoyed it. But like even one of them was like, "Oh, I remember back in the 80s the cartoon." They're like, I saw the kid in the armor, and I was like, "Oh, that's him." And it's like, yeah. But the thing that I think is funny is like the breakaway characters, like Zank, the Regé-Jean Page's character that everyone is in love with. It's like he was supposed to be Dritz de Werden, like I think the director or producer or something, like, and like, oh yeah, it was supposed to be him, but they're like, we couldn't figure out how to do a drow without being accused of blackface, and also it was like there was some weird like legal gray areas of like, we can do him, but if we like divert from his story, then like we have to call like Ed Greenwood and like clear it with him, and we don't want to do that, and like so they just kind of dropped it and made an original character, but they had already choreographed his fight scenes and done a couple other things, so they're like, yeah, he just happens to fight exactly like Dritz and have the same sense of humor as Dritz, and does a lot, like they go to the Underdark like Dritz. Like, but this is our totally original
found out they removed the best episode of Community, well, one of the best episodes of Community, because of the drow thing.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a bummer.
Ken Jeong does blackface to be a drow.
Oh.
And for that one joke, instead of cutting the joke, they cut the whole episode. And I will say, like, the joke is that it's outrageous that he does that. And I was like, but I will say, if it hurts, if it offends anyone, like,
I wouldn't say it's blackface, it's because his all of his skin is black and he's got white hair. He doesn't have like he doesn't look like the racist minstrel.
Yeah.
He's just full on.
He looks like a drow.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's like that. Such a great episode of Community, and I will say, I don't ever want to like offend anyone or hurt someone's feelings, because I know that that's such a sensitive topic. But it's like, man, it's like that episode of Community is so funny, and it's such a classic episode. I wish that they would just cut that one joke, because again, it's 30 seconds of screen time to cut that joke out instead of just cutting the whole episode. Like,
I'd say I think you just put a disclaimer at the front, because so many things become offensive nowadays. Like, you have no idea what you say now isn't going to be offensive in like 15 years or 15 months.
That's true, yeah.
At the moment. Yeah. So like,
and out of context, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're watching the episode in context, it is a joke on kind of blackface, but he's not doing blackface, so that's what kind of makes it. That's what makes it funny and outrageous. Because like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's
because you're gonna lose so much stuff.
Right, if you just totally erase, things.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm thinking of adding to Batman's stat block here is having a feature that he doesn't kill anyone, that when he reduces a character to 0 hit points, they instantly stabilize. So that he doesn't kill anybody.
That's pretty good, yeah.
I'm like, is that too much? But it's kind of fun.
That is pretty fun, yeah.
I would say any weapon he holds just becomes non-lethal.
That's true.
Conjure Barrage. Volley. I will say I'm pretty happy with his stat block so far. I'm gonna add a couple other little things, and then I think I'm like pretty much good to go with it.
Yeah, my Robin's looking more and more like what's her name?
Carrie Kelly.
From Dark Knight. Carrie Kelly.
Yeah, just without the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely like a very classic kind of Robin feel. I
Kind of putting some subtle kind of, Eastern flair, sort of the monk robes or sort of ninja vibe to it.
I am loving the Batman with the helmet, like cowl really sells it for Batman. For me.
Oh yeah, all the little battle damage too. That's great.
Yeah, I did go down more of a knightish looking route.
I mean, yeah, and I think even calling the character stat the Dark Knight is a good way to go with it.
Okay, well, I've already typed Batman like 30 times, so I'm not doing it.
Okay.
I'd have to find replace Batman so many times. But no, I just think I'll do this non-lethal. Anyway, this is a feature. Do 0 hit points. Attack or spell.
The helmet kind of gives me a little bit of Witch King of Angmar. Is that how you say it?
Yeah. God, I love the design that they did for the Witch King of Angmar. And it's like, that's such a interesting, not to just turn this into a Lord of the Rings stream, because I absolutely, but
set the timer.
Okay, but the thing I will say, is especially for the Witch King of Angmar, he is supposed to, in the books, when he pulls the hood back, he's invisible, but he has a floating crown that's on fire. But that's it. That's not very exciting, and that's a lot that's a lot of graphics that they already are doing a bunch of other, especially at the time, some intense CGI. So just giving him the helmet that is reminiscent of Sauron's helmet while also being unique and being this twisted, distorted, elongated face to show his fall from being a man that he once was. And he has a very kingly kind of crown aspect, but again, twisted. It's just such a good fucking design. And I think it's something that visually, I know that Tolkien was very pedantic about little things for his books. And I think that if you were to watch the Peter Jackson movies, there'd be a lot that he would like and a lot that he would hate. But I think Witch King of Angmar, sure, he would be like, no, I get it. I get why you did that. And that he would be down with the design.
Yeah, I was seeing a thing that was we've kind of come to accept that the Peter Jackson is sort of the standard of this is the correct.
Right.
But he did have to kind of interpret, him and the whole team obviously have to interpret a lot of things that were kind of, some of it was more of symbolic, descriptions. Even halflings and orcs, were sort of described as these dark ones or these small folk, but that was kind of more of a symbolism thing that okay, it became a literal thing.
Well, I also like that Tolkien had said in the letters goblin and orc are the same thing for him, that he's oh, it's just different words for the same creatures, but then he kind of was but goblins refers to these orcs that reside underground and do this, and it's a more of a cultural, like, location based nickname for them. But then for Peter Jackson, he's like, no, we're not going to do that. Everyone knows that they're different things, and so like was more like you can see the orcs and then the Uruk-hai and the goblins as like distinct designs, and that makes them so much more interesting. And even like, you know, stuff that he changed, stuff that he left out, stuff that he added, it all tells the themes of the story so well.
Right. I think same thing with like Del Toro's interpretation of Hellboy, you know, where there's a lot that you know really was his own doing that departed from the source material, but it just really takes the spirit of it and takes it in a really cool direction.
I would love Del Toro to reboot Hellboy, but stop motion. Can you imagine the level of this Pinocchio stop motion,
right,
in Hellboy? Because those Del Toro designs in that Pinocchio film, they look so good. Because like that is one of the things that is amazing, and also falls a little bit short in those Hellboy films. Is the creature designs are amazing, and I love practical stuff. But some of the stuff doesn't move as well as you want because it's practical. And they obviously didn't have the budget to go like all out, making certain things move super realistically and stuff like that. Which I know is part of its charm, like in the D&D film. I love the fact that Dragonborn and the Tabaxi they weren't CG. It was like the Tabaxis looked a bit shit.
What was it? Jarnathan, yeah.
Okay, Jarnathan is my favorite character in the D&D movie.
Oh yeah, he's
so doofy looking, and I will say, yeah, the Tabaxi, like especially the kitten that's like, I'm like, oh, they look so stupid, and I love it. Like it was,
yeah, it totally worked, and I loved it as well. But yeah, having that level of awesomeness in stop motion, I think stop motion would work perfectly for Hellboy because you could get those hard blacks in. Like I've got the Mike Mignola Batman figure, and just all the shading on it on a 3D model looks so good and crisp still.
Is that the Gotham by Gaslight one?
No, it's just Batman standing from the black and white series of statues.
Okay.
He's just standing there holding the Batarang with the wire. It's one of my favorite statues that I own. But yeah, stop motion Hellboy would be fucking amazing because you can get Ron Perlman back voicing.
Yeah.
I'm on board. You sold me.
I just need to tell Del Toro to make it now.
Let's get him on the horn.
Because that Pinocchio film is amazing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I've been loving the renaissance for stop motion with all the Leica films that are just works of art. Yeah,
Kubo is one of my favorite Leica films.
And it holds up too. You know, the CG can we catch up and then we're like, ooh, it's a little bit rough. But like going back and watching, you know, James and the Giant Peach or you know, Night Before Christmas, you know, it's just like this is still amazing.
Yeah. They are very expensive films to make, though.
Time consuming, for sure.
Yeah, that's why you don't see them. I think Leica, they found a really good middle ground with using 3D printing.
Yeah. I will say I was very happy when I saw some of the behind the scenes stuff for the Pinocchio, seeing since it was done over the lockdown and all the restrictions and whatnot, the animators just like filmed themselves at home and just really got weird with it. Especially like the one who's the modeled herself for Pinocchio, like acting all crazy and like a brat and just like yeah, and like they're so exaggerated in their movements, but it just sells it so well.
That's just a standard animation reference. To be fair,
Yeah, well, it's just like it's just nice that he puts the effort into it, and like he's like this isn't. He's like animation isn't a children's thing. He's like it is an art form. It is a style of telling a story, and that he's been so adamant and so vocal about it. Um, Even like at the Oscars, it's like wins best animated. To come out and be like, nope, this. He's like, you need to understand that it's not just for kids stuff. He's like, animation can tell any kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, especially like the industry, movie industry, is a crock of shit with these awards because especially with the way they treat animation, like you'll see countless of them saying like, "Oh, we didn't have to watch them. It's a Disney film, so I'm just waiting for Disney."
Yeah.
Oh,
But like
yeah.
during lockdown,
Political
like
stuff, yeah.
animated films were the only ones that really that kept going because everyone can work from home.
Yeah.
Oh, for real, yeah. I realized I put on low power mode, but I don't want that when I'm streaming here. Let me turn that off. I just have to keep an eye on it. Oops. Mm.
Trying to check the wording of a. Okay, got it.
Well, we're in the final stretch. I definitely think us extending the stream a little earlier was helpful to get further through the process.
Yeah, I struggled a bit at the start. I thought I knew where I was going with it, and then it's just one of those things where everything just looks like crap.
You got there. Love it.
How's yours looking?
I'm having fun with it. I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, okay, where do I go? What do I want to prioritize here? I'm sure there's going to be some things that I noodle with off stream, but
Okay.
let's
take a quick gander. So we're looking at Batman, looking fantastic, I have to say.
Thank you.
Absolutely love that. Take a
That's
quick
so good.
gander at Robin here. Love that. Like I said, very classic kind of vibe, but like I can see where you're
Amazing.
going. Like I said, very different vibe for the two of them. And then, okay, let's see here. And then let me show off the Batman that I made. So, Batman, I said he's medium humanoid, armor class of 20. He's got standard 237 hit points. Like I said, 25 d8 plus his con mod. Speed of 45 feet. I want him to be really fast. I might drop that to 40, but I feel like 45 is fair. High strength, very high dex. Like I said, like superhuman dex. Very high con, very, very high intelligence. Kind of decent wisdom and charisma. Proficient in dex and wisdom saves. Proficient with athletics, history, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, stealth. Got a lot. He's got a lot. But it's Batman. I said resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons. Felt like that's only fair. He's a CR 18, so you should have magical shit at this point. Dark vision out to 90 feet. All languages. I know that he's a polyglot in the comics, so I just felt like that was the easiest way to go. He has evasion, so if he saves on a dex save, no damage. If he fails a dex save, it's half damage. He has advantage on saves made to resist being charmed, exhausted, frightened, stunned, or paralyzed. Very, very tough there. Plus, he has legendary resistance. You're not gonna. He's gonna succeed on saving throws. Okay, he's gonna succeed. But non-lethal. If he reduces a creature to 0 hit points with an attack or spell, they stabilize but remain unconscious for 1 hour until they regain hit points, until they take damage, or until someone shakes or slaps them awake. He makes 3 brawling attacks or 3 battering attacks, or any combination of both of them. I'm going to add one tiny thing here. He can replace one of those attacks with using spellcasting. With a of his spellcasting. So for the brawling, plus 13 to hit 5 feet, it does 2d10 plus 7 bludgeoning. And then once a turn, he can either disarm, grapple, or trip them. He's taking stuff out of somebody's hands, he's grappling someone and starts like choking them that they take damage every turn, or he's tripping them and knocking them prone. He has his batarang range of 80 to 320 feet. Does 3d8 force damage, and he can either push them back 5 feet or knock them prone. And then spells, I gave him Cause Fear at will. Detect Magic, Identify, and Message. As 3 times a day, he can do Dimension Door. I feel like teleporting 500 feet is a very Batman thing. Invisibility, or Spirit Guardians, which would be the bats, of course. Or gadgets, however you want to do. Once a day each, Conjure Barrage and Conjure Volley. That's all gadgets. That's just just like throwing 50 batarangs or doing some other crazy gadget. And then Legend Lore, where you learn. It's like he's a detective, so he learns about something. Legendary item or character. He can dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. And then my favorite one I've done, reaction, is Dramatic Escape 3 times a day. As a reaction to a creature averting their eyes from or otherwise being unable to see Batman, he can teleport to an unoccupied space he can see within 120 feet and turn invisible until the start of his next turn.
Amazing.
So as soon as you stop looking at him, he's out of there.
Ooh, that's great.
That's the Batmaniest thing in this entire stat block for me. Very proud of that one. So I think that we're good for now. Let's
look at us.
Yes.
Oh, he's slapping in them colors. He's slapping them in.
So I want to thank everybody who's watching. I appreciate all of you for checking this out. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really fun. Just
Yeah, super
talking about
fun.
stuff
Thanks for
and-
having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, I hope we can do some more stuff together in the future for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And yes, I definitely will need to figure out time we can have so we can either do another super or you guys can flip and you can do Robin and Chris can do that.
I mean, I'm gonna be doing Batman one way or another. I got,
All right.
but I knew Robin was gonna be fun. Yeah,
but
when you work on your Robin stat, I'll do Batman.
okay, we'll do that. But for that, thank you so much. So, tell people where they can find you one last time. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll drop a link to your Twitter in the chat here for everybody.
Yeah, you can find me on most places at ArtMonkeyMG, on Twitter ArtMonkeyMG2. Yeah, that's where I mostly post stuff. I also have a Patreon as well, which is mainly for my Gotta Draw 'em All Pokemon challenge, where I'm trying to draw all the Pokemon.
I saw you were
My
getting
style.
that going. That's great.
Yeah, I'm halfway through Dex 4 in the roughs and about almost halfway through Dex 1 in the color versions.
Nice.
If you go onto my TikTok at ArtMonkeyMG, you can see a lot of the time lapse full Dex videos that I've done.
Nice. I went ahead and I put your link tree in the chat. Again, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
This has been a blast.
Yeah.
Chris, tell people where they can find you.
Yes, I mean you could find me here every other Thursday where we're doing something kooky. Otherwise, over on Instagram, C Leverett Art, or same name on Twitter.
And I'm Alexam, or the Purveyor of all things. I'm on Twitter at Alec_Sam. I have an Instagram that I don't do enough with, that I'm starting to try and post more stuff with. And right now I have a couple big things. Later tonight, actually, I will have episode 2 of Hunter's Moon, which is my spliced playtest.
Oh yeah.
We have some cool updates tonight because actually for the players, Splice 2.0 is out. I now have done enough updates that I've gotten to 2.0. But beyond that, see if they survive the party being hunted for sport. So check that out. Upcoming Tuesday, I will be doing episode 2 of A Rainy Night on 44th Street, which is another Splice playtest. If you haven't gathered, I'm working on Spliced, a occult TTRPG of my own design. Should be out later this year. We're in the playtesting stages right now, and it's been super awesome. So check that out. Beyond that, my other big announcement is this month, before the end of the month, so coming up in the next week, actually, I'll be releasing Treasures of the Pirate Court Big Booty Edition, which is an update to my giant book of pirate-themed content for D&D 5e. So if you like D&D and you like pirates, check that out when it comes out. It's gonna not only have updates to every single pirate lord, it has several new pirates for you to enjoy, a bunch of new stat blocks, some new subclasses, new items, new spells, and anything you need to run a pirate campaign. So check that out. Thank you all for watching. We're just gonna go ahead and wrap it up for today, and we will be back in 2
Finishing
weeks.
as well.
And I think we'll probably see when we can post all these, but Batman will be going up on Twitter in probably the next 20 minutes. So, the stat block at least. Thank all of you, and have a great rest
Thanks
of
for
your day.
having me. It's been fun.
No, we always say around here, stay magical,